I couldn't believe he did it. And it's sprinkled throughout the show. There is so much love and care put into Star Trek Picard if you are a fan of Star Trek. And also, it's just a rousing, fun space adventure that has villains and there's conspiracies and there's all different kinds of aliens. And there's even it's very subtle, but there's a great fuck you to modern Star Trek in it. Star Trek Picard returns Star Trek to where it should be, about human beings and their alien friends striving to be the best they can be, and in the face of great adversity, and stepping up. And it's not about if it's what you feel, it's okay. No. What you feel is going to get you killed. You know what's not going to get you killed? Really knowing how to do your job, and working with other people that are really smart and know how to do their jobs. We have to put our emotions aside and get the job done. And that's what Star Trek to me was about. It was about being the best person, human being you can be, and finding the best people around you, the best of the best, to go out. And that's what you need to be on the final frontier. Otherwise, you will get killed. You will never survive. And Star Trek Picard is all about these people that are the best of the best coming back together and doing what they do best. And it was refreshing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 30th episode of Chillporeal. Tonight, we are going to be talking with the creator of Saving Star Trek himself, Admiral Teag. What's up? Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Wow, the memories, huh? I was tempted
Old
to
wounds.
open up my... You had the option there. I should have typed in the private chat. Like, I am organically laughing extremely hard right now if you want to open my mic. It's just... That is that how we crossed paths the first time? We were both talking to Robert Meyer Burnett about that tweet he made about how it was really, really good and stuff. And like, we both had like legitimate questions, right? That's how it started.
It started with so a whole bunch of people were like, you're wrong, Rob. This is not how Star Trek is going to come back to be. And I tried to be as friendly about it. I tried to be as nice about it, tried to be as cordial as I could. I'm just saying I disagree with this. I think this is unsatisfactory.
Same here.
But
know that he's like, there's some people who think he's like a Star Trek legend, so you don't want to like just go hard after him, and you don't want to like burn a lot of bridges like early in your career. But he was talking some tall smack about that, because I don't think we got anything to write home about in Picard 3. In fact, we said backstage before the show that if we started with Picard 3, we may never move off of it. So much wrong.
Yeah. So
what did he say?
So he's big enough. He just basically dismissed most of us. And I mean, it's nothing. I never got really into it. If he likes it, great. If anybody that likes Picard season 3, I'm already over it. But last year I was kind of on a crusade.
I was
trying to tell people. I'm trying to tell people like this is not the Star Trek. This is not at the level of what made Star Trek great in the first place. It's better, but it's because how bad all the other new Trek shows have been. I think that's a big part of why people really, really like this. And plus, you have all the member berries, you have all the callbacks, and you bring back the TNG crew. That's a lot of people. That's the reason why a lot of people have said they liked it. And I'm just saying, like, from a story perspective, from a writing perspective, and I'm not even the smartest guy in the room. I had other great people that I did discussions with. I had Prophet of the Dragon, I had Alex of the White Cloaks, and I've had Wakizashi Seahouse. We're all talking about it. And it's, as a show, it's not written well at all. I mean, it's better. There's more things going on. It's not nearly as offensive, but it's, yeah. But I was on a crusade. I was telling everybody the whole thing. And I came across you. And when I find people on X or Twitter, I think it was still Twitter then, I look to see if they have channels, see if they're content creators. You had a channel. You had this video called Star Trek and Stockholm Syndrome. and the thing, what's funny is, so I watched that video, and I was rewatching it today, and I was reading the comment that I left, and that was the video that made me subscribe to you and everything. So, and what's funny is you're not the first one that said this. I mean, Rob himself has said that Star Trek's been in a hostage crisis for all this time. And it's just insane. And just tell us a little bit, how'd you come across that idea? Just to make, what made you want to make that Star Trek Stockholm Syndrome video?
The person we just watched.
Yeah.
Honestly, reactions like his and other people who I respected. I know Critical Drinker only saw like 3 episodes of the 6, right? So he has an excuse. He doesn't know how it ended. Like, if this thing was rife with all of the same problems, and if by better we mean it was so much slower that it wasn't able to be quite as stupid, well then, I mean, it was better. But we're talking about a painfully slowly paced story here with, at best, less events going on, so you had less chances to contradict and have the dialogue start spinning back on itself, because the real Star Trek form we remember was closer to Rings of Power. Remember how that would go, where someone would say something and within 2 or 3 sentences they would undercut what they had already just said and make a liar of themselves, and then they would do something under false pretenses, but they'd be forgiven for it, and then that would be sort of like washed away. Like, I think, was it maybe Elrond? Like, he's not on a spy mission, but he is on a spy mission, but he's not. And it's just the cheapest, most low budget Moria mine rescue ever. And the dialogue is like spinning wheels and gears. And by the time they've spoken 3 sentences each, they're both so deeply lying to themselves and each other. You're like, my God, it's Star Trek Discovery season 5. I was calling them Romulels. That's like, the elves are just like the Romulans here. They're lying scumbags.
And the Romulans in Star Trek Picard, especially Elnor, is Romulegolas.
Oh,
he looks like Legolas.
I'll go with Red Letter Media on that one. It's like he keeps going around cutting people's heads off. He's trying to get better about that.
That's a new Trek thing. We saw that in Picard season 1, where Elnor cuts off the head of the Black Romulan. So that's problematic right there. So New Trek is guilty of that too. And then they did the thing with Worf. And
we bonded over that one online. That was one where we bonded on Twitter, because like we both found ourselves again like basically facing off against like an army of bots and like 2 or 3 real people who thought the show was just the greatest. And 1 or 2 reasonable people that would like, so like here's like me and Nerdporeal, like we don't want to look insane, and at the same time we don't want to look like shills. Because the worst thing you can be is just an endorser rubber stamping these shows. And one thing that really got my hackles up was with these people that they had together to do it, and this speculative idea, they said that show was going to turn everything around and be a game changer, and it'd be totally different and it would be great. And people were just like blowing horns for this thing like it was like the greatest thing ever. And like it's the biggest flop since Ryan Leaf. I mean,
I haven't heard of Ryan Leaf.
About it. Exactly. He was the number 1 NFL draft. They took him, I think, before Peyton Manning.
Okay.
So you've heard of him, right?
Before we go any further, I need to say hello to the chat. So we have usual Trip is here. Thanks for being here, Trip. LPK member. We have Suzanne Eckstein saying hi, Admiral T. Someone, I think first time on this channel. And we got
Suzanne.
And we got Radioactive.
Hey, buddy.
And this William Richards member. Thank you for being here. We got DJ Ronnie G member, and we got the captain himself, JT Kirk. So
all right.
But yeah, so we got that, and we got
one and all.
Yeah, we got my my Zelda buddy CLS Studio here. So thank you guys for being here. So so Admiral, sir, I gotta call you. I have to unlike New Trek, I have to respect the chain of command. We can't.
Cool.
So, sir, I got to ask you, tell me a little bit about your history with Star Trek. How'd you discover? How'd you get into it? And I mean, what's some of your favorite stuff?
All right, I guess from what they call in a lot of streams and shows, the syndication generation of TOS, where I was able to grow up watching the original series only. It was the only Star Trek there was, right? So I watched those. My earliest memory would be, I want to say either Devil in the Dark or the Doomsday Machine on my parents' black and white TV. That was like a gigantic piece of furniture that left an after image when you turned it off. Like we're talking about, a big, huge black and white TV. So I didn't get that aspect of it, but I'm watching and like Captain Kirk is just like my hero. He's doing these amazing things, and I think maybe either Devil in the Dark or the Doomsday Machine are the ones that stick in my mind most. The Doomsday Machine, maybe just establishing how important the friendship between Spock and Kirk is and how good of an actor Leonard Nimoy is. And, the Doomsday Machine, just what a Shatner episode and what a great world-building episode and amazing, just an amazing, presaging so many other movies and ideas. And, that's another thing. Think of how many movies there are just in Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. But the Doomsday Machine, like I know that's at least on your YouTube and on your Twitter.
Frequently use the avatar.
That's your avatar of Commodore Decker, played by William Wyndham. And what's funny is I never realized it, but he's the same actor he's in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, just looking at the art, and he's sitting there, he's looking at, they're waiting, he puts it down, and then he looks at it some more. I didn't realize that's him. That was him.
He keeps working until like the middle 90s. He's in weird movies like Summersby. He's got like a few lines in it, and it's just like, what's funny is in Summersby, it's like, are you familiar with the movie?
No, I don't think so.
It's okay. So Richard Gere, Jodie Foster, 1993, but it's written by, I think, Lawrence Kasdan, right? And so, you watch it because of that. And you're like, all right, I've seen Richard Gere be a good actor. I know Jodie Foster can act. Maybe this will be good. And it's like, oh, it's based on the return of Martin Gare, a story from like 1690. It's really cool. Check it out. You've got to check this out. Hello, CLS. It was about a guy who comes home from war and resembles someone else and sort of doppelganger replaces them. But then we find out that person is benevolent. So the first one takes place during something crazy like the 100 Years' War or something in France. And it's called The Return of Martin Gare. That's the French movie. It's decent. It's really, because it was the first time it was done. It's like this rug pull, but it's also, I think, a historical fact and a case that was like in the book of some like parish outside of some city in France. Like I think there's some historical verification, because what happened was eventually the guy who really was Martin Gare comes back and challenges the guy, proves who he is, and they hang the guy. And so the Return of Martin Gare is the French version of it. The American version is Summersby, and it's just, he comes back, he looks just like the other guy, he takes his place, he's benevolent, he helps everybody. It's the end of the American Civil War instead of being like 1650. And he's just the nicest guy to ever fight for the Confederacy, and he wants to help everybody. And then the bad guy in the movie is the president from Independence Day, and it's just
Bill Pullman.
It almost worked, yeah. And it's just like it almost works, but it doesn't. And yeah, and I deserve better from Lawrence Kasdan, but there's a doomsday sort of preacher in it, and he's like, if you've done this thing, you should die. And it's him. It's William Wyndham.
William freaking Wyndham.
God.
Did you know?
I was like, this movie sucks. And like, finally, like he shows up and I'm like, all right, he just saved this movie.
Did you know that William Wyndham was also he played the president in Escape from the Planet of the Apes? That's the third one where Cornelius and Zara go back in time to 1971 Earth, New York, right? I think it's New York or LA. He was the president in that one.
That's great. You know what? You could see it. Just give him a shave and calm him down, and he would be a good president. But his execution of the role of Commodore Decker was just something that, how do you forget something like that? You see a ship just like the Enterprise, and for me, and I think for everybody, right, in the world, because of the way the series aired, it's the first ship just like the Enterprise we see, and it's been destroyed. And it looks like it's been pretty easily destroyed. It's messed up, bad. And then we see a captain, and this captain outranks Kirk. It's someone Kirk respects, and he's a wreck. He's a mirror of his ship. He's a bearded mess, and we've never seen anybody except Ben Finney with growth. And he's kind of dirty. If you have growth in the original series, and you're a little bit dirty, there's something very wrong with you. So I think you could clean yourself off just by like pointing like a phaser at yourself on like 0 setting. It's like, set my phaser to clothing razor. Clean up my command tunic.
That's awesome.
I think it's why they show it to you right up front in the beginning of the first scene of the emissary in DS9. We see a very dirty Starfleet engineer right away. The camera makes sure to wipe right down past him into the ops center to start Deep Space Nine. I think they're sending us a message. And that was a grittier Star Trek.
It was. That's true. Was that O'Brien or was that someone else?
It wasn't. It was just some extra. But, as they say, there are no small parts, just small actors. And that guy was there to just look up. I don't even know if we really get his face, but we get to see the point of him being there is he was hired because of this build to show off the fact that he had a dirty uniform, to show that this was a different kind of Star Trek show. He had a dirty uniform and no one was freaking out. Like, up until now, people with dirty uniforms, people like pointing guns at them. Like, Tom Riker is the only person in a dirty uniform we see who isn't outright dangerous.
I actually never noticed that. Yeah, that's wow, that's true.
The trope. Dirty uniform on Ben Finney and bearded. Right? Dirty uniform on Decker and bearded. But then like the much more deliberate villain who's like completely crazy, clean uniform, no beard on Captain Tracy. In Omega Glory.
Omega Glory, yeah.
And I think I've covered most of the other Starfleet captains, except for the ones that confront him in the bar in Court Martial.
Yeah. I mean, I think the very first episode where Kirk, we actually encounter someone who outranks Kirk is Commodore Stone in Court Martial. And I don't know about you, but I loved his performance. Like, I thought Commodore Stone was just awesome.
Commodore Stone was great. Did he come maybe out of cop movies or something? He was
in a lot of shows in the 60s. I know that for sure.
You know what I liked about Star Trek then was that without being in any way heavy-handed and in any way changing the story or going out of any way, shape, or form to jam it into the story, we took a guy who was about, let's say, 10 years older than Kirk. We did a good job of showing him as being very much in charge and in command. He's Kirk's boss. Kirk is answering to him very seriously. He's got his own transporter. He's so important. He has his own.
Yeah, he's got the two positions right there. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And
do you think that room has a bathroom? Do you think he also has a bathroom in there, or do you think he turns on the transporter and just pisses into the beam and lets it go right into space? Because you really,
probably,
theoretically, might not need the bathroom if you're an officer.
Yeah,
it's a thought, right? It's like, oh, damn, the captain's at it again. I might just do that to people I didn't like. Like, beam it towards the Excelsior.
So I got a question. So the Constellation, the damaged ship and Doomsday Machine, that was the first time you saw another starship outside of the Enterprise. Is that right?
Another starship that looked just like the Enterprise.
I forget. It's the same class, right? Constitution class?
It's exactly the same class. And the reason Commodore Decker wears the insignia he does is because he's the Commodore of the 5-year mission. And he's wearing his own personal command insignia. He doesn't wear the Delta uniform, but his crew would have. Except for the one guy we see. But I'm assuming that must mean that guy was like way up in Starfleet Medical. Because I'm imagining the flagship of the 5-year mission of Constitution class ships was probably, I mean, think about it. This guy was supposed to be like Bull Halsey. This guy was supposed to be one of the most commanding and important people. And Captain Kirk respected him, and he was one of the few people who we don't see being overtly hostile to Kirk from Starfleet. Like that Starbase commander we mentioned, he doesn't dislike Kirk, but when he thinks Kirk's fucking with him, he turns around right away, and he's just like, I think that you're obviously perjuring yourself. He's like, that's as far as you go, Commodore. And it's a great scene.
I demand it. He's like, if what you suspect is true, I should be punished. He's like, I'm thinking of the service. Well, Commodore, and he gets up, and he's just like, well, Commodore Stone, I'm telling you, I was there. I know what happened. Well, then you call a general court. I love quoting.
So that's how we do it now. We just sweep it under the rug,
and me along with it.
Yeah.
I tend to fight.
I thought he was more outraged for the service. I thought he was like, honestly, Captain Kirk is such a white knight. Like his ego's bruised, and he wants to command the Enterprise. And he's like, right now, just thinking like, I am going to beat this because I know what happened. And the confidence is amazing. But
yes.
Whew, did any of us know any of this kind of things with like, an AI and like, security tapes and recordings and like space meteorology was maybe invented for that episode? It's like, he had to go in the ion pod. I gave him those moments and more.
That's true. That's great.
Well, I mean, Ben Finney is like, that was one of the things, like Star Trek was versatile, and maybe the new Trek people I would say they should watch that episode, Court Martial, but they would take all the wrong lessons from it. We would get an episode like we got in Strange New World at Aspera Aspera, where they decide that first of all, in that episode, they lie and say that she's not augmented, which means that the show's default position is she can punch down a steel door and carry a grown-ass man. So she went out of her way to stay human, so she should be allowed in. And then they changed their constitution to let her in and applaud for her. In this one, it's like, it looks like Captain Kirk is going to go down.
Yeah.
What have we here? Is this the script?
This is the Star Trek Bible. This is the Star Trek Bible from 1960. This is the writer-director's guide it's a third revision from 1967. So yeah, this is the Star Trek guide. This is for writers and all that. So they got, like, they literally give you that. So they have like a little test right here. So it gives you a teaser right here. And then it tells you, then it asks you for like, what can you find the Star Trek error in the following teaser from a story outline? So you got this little thing right here, basically saying the scene is the bridge of the USS Enterprise, United States Spaceship Enterprise. Captain Kirk is at his command position. His lovely but highly efficient female yeoman is at his side. Suddenly and without provocation, our starship is attacked by an alien space vessel. We try to warn the alien vessel off, but it ignores us and begins loosening bolts of photon energy plasma at us. The alien vessel's attack begins to weaken our deflectors. Mr. Spock reports to Captain Kirk that the next enemy boat will probably break through and destroy the ship. At this moment, we look up to see that final energy plasma bolt heading for us. There may be only 4 or 5 seconds of life left. Kirk puts his arms about his lovely yeoman, comforting her, embracing her as they wait for what seems certain death. Fade out. And then it asks to check one. What would be the biggest issue? Inaccurate terminology. The Enterprise is more correctly an international vessel, the United States Spaceship Enterprise. And then the other one is scientifically incorrect. Energy plasma bolts could not be photon in nature. 3, unbelievable. The captain would not hug pretty yeoman on the bridge of the vessel. Or the 4th one, the concept's weak. This whole story opening reeks too much of space pirate or similar bad science fiction. So, Admiral, sir, which one do you think is the error?
Well, we know it's not that he puts his arm around the yeoman, because we actually see them do that. And I think is it in Balance of Terror when they're trying to outrun the Romulan weapon? Because we never get a name for it in that one. It's is it that one? And it's just like this one will break through our shields. It's that exact situation. And I think he does put his arms around Janice. So it's not that.
It is that. That's right. It says right here.
Really?
Yes.
And they did it in the show anyway, because I could think of a scene where they do it. Wow, I was going to say kind of incorrect terminology because it's the USS Enterprise.
So they're like, no, we're not joking. The preceding page was a very real, important test of your approach to science fiction. Here's why. And so the first thing, inaccurate terminology, wrong. If you check this one, sure, the term United States spaceship is incorrect, but it could have been just fixed with a pencil slash. Although we do want directors, writers, actors, and others to use the proper terminology, this era was certainly far from being the major Star Trek format era. So that's for that. And then the scientifically inaccurate one says this: wrong again. Beware if you check this one. Although we do want to be scientifically accurate, we found that selection of this item usually indicates a preoccupation with science and gadgetry over people and story. So this show, Star Trek, and I think what made this work so well is that they focused on people and story. I mean, that's kind of what I got out of it. I never was really into the gadgetry as much as most people are.
I cared about the gadgetry, but I wasn't someone who I understand that one of the complaints that you would hear was like people would say that buttons would be pushed in incorrect sequence as they were weeks before to do certain things, or it'd be a different sound effect. And that is a nitpick, but and I can overlook something like that. But honestly, let's say something else. There was Star Trek people were so pragmatic that even though I got that question wrong, I would at least get hired as a fact checker. They'd be like, yeah, we like where you're at, kid, because honestly, they were willing to break that rule, and we saw it on screen. We all know the scene. Maybe I have the episode wrong, but they are trying to outrun. They're facing certain death, and Janice is scared, and he just puts his arm around her. They're gonna die anyway, and somehow they luck their way out of it. So they would make concessions to the audience the way something like the Rolling Stones make concessions. Like, do the Rolling Stones necessarily want to play Start Me Up? No, but they know you want to hear it, so they're going to play it and play it great. Would they rather play a 40-minute blues jam freestyle because they're that good? They probably would, but, it would only be interesting for them. So, like, they keep it to like 10 minutes. Like, you make some concessions to the audience while staying true to yourself. So I don't know if it would be wrong for the captain to offer anyone comfort. He might even put his arm around Bones if he thought they were going to die. Just like, buddy, they've been through so much. I don't know if that's I could make a compassionate argument against that one, but you know what? How could Gene Roddenberry be wrong?
Exactly.
Maybe I could convince DC Fontana to let me be a fact checker. That would be good enough for me. I'd just be like, you know what? Clearly your test is right, and I should just be a fact checker on your show.
So they say here, the problem is it's unbelievable. Why is this the correct answer? Simply because we've learned during a full season of making visual science fiction that believability of characters, their actions and reactions, is our greatest need and is the most important angle factor. Let's explore that, and then they go into some examples here. But yeah, they're like, no, Captain Henderson would not. He's not the kind of if he's the kind of captain we hope is commanding any naval vessel of ours, he wouldn't be putting his arm around during that type of thing. I don't know. They're trying to make it believable.
I honestly, if you think about this, like, okay, you're the commander of an aircraft carrier, and there you see coming in like this Tomahawk strike, and like confirmation that like one of them's going to be an airburst atomic missile and everyone's going to die. I don't know if anyone cares at that point. They had raised the stakes a little too high for me to answer the question correctly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, because it was anything but imminent. You know what I mean? Because we have seen Kirk indulge his crew in a non-military way in Galileo 7 when they're offering different reasons why they could have lost track of the shuttle. And it goes, those are all very interesting theories, and I'll entertain each and every one of them when it becomes democracy. And then he laughs to release the tension, and he leads by example by saying,
I think he says that in the Corbomite maneuver, especially he's responding to Bailey. He's like, I vote we blast it. He's like, I'll consider that, Mr. Bailey. Like you said, when this becomes a democracy.
He says it more than once. Yeah.
Okay, that's true.
Once. Yeah. The thing is, on the Enterprise, this is one of the things I hate about New Trek. They're very unmilitary, and they write the same character. They pop it out of a mold. Everybody is a sarcastic cut-up, so we don't know who to take seriously. And they have deniability on every aspect of their story. So they can walk away from it. Like, I defy you to tell me what the New Trek canon is. It's the most conveniently written television show in the history of television.
Well, I mean, the big issue is the lack of consequences. Like, I mean, I don't remember much about Discovery, but Picard, especially season 1 with the Agnes Jurati character, she murders Bruce Maddox. Remember that? I mean, he's a jerk in Measure of the Man, but she murdered him.
And Picard's like, we'll have to think about that down the road.
And
it's a lesson for us all. Who hasn't murdered a lover?
Exactly. And then Seven of Nine is a murderer in the Stardust City Rag episode where they murdered Ichab, where they ripped his eye out.
That episode might have been the single worst. That might have been the nadir and Last Jedi of Star Trek, because it's like they launched this new streaming service. I'm convinced to get it. I have a little bit of optimism. They know how to try to play the game at this point by having what I would call the new normal is the event-free episode 1 for New Trek. Episode 1 is so free of anything happening that you get to the end of it, and then we start to build up for an episode. And that's where episode 2 happens. And then doesn't it seem episode 3 is always the one where if it's made it that far, and it doesn't always, but if it makes it to episode 3, somewhere in episode 3 it implodes. But episode 3 of Picard, season 3, I believe it was, or season 1, is the Romulan DNA scanning device that re-shows the last few minutes of your life because you've left DNA behind. It's a combination of Gattaca and like a VCR. And it just shows a hologram of what happened. And you're like, that's not how DNA works. And it's like,
I think that was episode 2. I think that was episode 2 when they go to.
Is it? It's
that,
when
that apartment or something. There's no police.
That's
there.
the abandoned pilot, according to a lot of people.
Really?
That this was going to be Picard sleuthing in space.
Oh,
but that's when I added one of the rules. I have like 11 Star Trek rules here on my what I call it the Star Trek Matrix. These aren't unbreakable, right? But if you hit enough of them, you're going to cross a certain point where it becomes Star Trek. And one of the things that I put on there was their tech level can't be below ours. They can't make mistakes or have problems that we wouldn't have. You know?
Yeah.
And that was in Picard episode in Picard season 1, their tech levels below ours sometimes, and at other times it's like ridiculously advanced. And then that's why I was like, wow, they used the DNA scanner thing like it was a Harry Potter thing, and that smug answer was no answer. And this is one thing that I just added to my like little mental bullet points that I always keep in mind. If the story ever uses any variation of it makes perfect sense, but your feeble mind just can't understand it, and then just keeps lurching forward without explaining it. No, that's a cheap trick. You know, it has to be somewhat more explained than that. Your feeble mind can't possibly. They've done that through all these multiverse movies. Where's your success?
I mean, like
multiverse is infinitely complex, right? We can't understand it. We can use it to magically reproduce you, but it might not be you. But it'll probably be you, but it might not. It makes sense, but it doesn't.
Yeah, you have to. There has to be some believability. The audience has to understand what's going on. And I mean, like right here, this is something that I know. I know that they haven't read this Bible, because
no,
you hear this.
They probably had somebody from like a diversity and inclusion kind of like place go through this actually for them and reverse engineer it. And they're like, we've perfected the Star Trek Bible by having one. And it's like, the correct answer is, it's like, she should have phased him with it on maximum when he put his arms around her without asking permission first. Because if you notice in Strange New World season 2, when Connie and Fake Kirk go back in time, he kisses her and like she sort of wants it. Remember that one, the time travel one where we kill Kirk?
I did not. I watched a couple episodes of season 2. I watched half of season 1 and I ducked out. But I did watch the what if Pike was in command during Balance of Terror. I watched that one. And that one was a weird one.
That one was pretty bad. It turns out we were very lucky it was James T. Kirk. Everything they do on New Trek just proves that. And hey, you know what? Between you and me, what do you think of William Shatner speaking up about Paramount Plus and the way that New Trek has been treating him lately?
Oh,
and
my
what
God.
Can you really make a Star Trek poster, a Star Trek TV show poster? And they don't have the movies anymore. They only have the TV shows. Can you make a Star Trek TV show poster for Paramount Plus and not put William Shatner in it? You're asking to fail. He's your biggest star by far.
Yes, he
far.
is. Yes, he is.
Next biggest. He's the New York Yankees of Star Trek. I'm sorry. Right now.
He, you know, I mean, do you know why? But do you know why? I don't know if it started with this, but I read this. Someone asked, and I think this was Twitter. Someone said, "What do you think? How do you think?" Someone asked him, "How do you think Gene Roddenberry would feel about how Star Trek was made today?" And he literally said he'd be rolling in his grave.
Oh,
even though Gene Roddenberry's remains, I think, were launched into outer space, he said he'd be rolling in his grave. Yes,
I read an update on that today too. That was failed to achieve stable orbit and is hurtling uncontrollably into space. And my tweet was, best case scenarios in like a few billion years, some aliens like reanimate. I think it was him and Arthur C. Clarke. So it's like if that's all they got of us, and they bring back like Arthur C. Clarke and Gene Roddenberry, they're like, the Earth people were extremely worthy and good people, you know, like that's the best case scenario for humanity is like after it's all gone, like some really super advanced godlike aliens find that. And would Gene Roddenberry have it any other way? His remains were supposed to, I believe, was it crash land on the moon or achieve an ideal orbit around the sun? Whatever it was, it didn't work out and it's hurtling out of control. Would he have it any other way? And of course, they're going to come back in a probe and they'd be like, it's looking for the Roddenberry. And so it'll be just like Nomad. It's coming back. We'll see those ashes again.
Okay. I got to ask this question right here from JT Kirk himself, the captain, sir.
Hello.
Question we all want to know the answer to. Does the transporter beam you up or down with a full bladder, or is it set to save you the trip? I always assume it's set to save you the trip. You know, you have the data stream, just do a little, filtering some, some fluid. I don't know.
I know this, that is a good question for like J.K. Rowling would be able to roll an answer to that right off the end of her tongue. But, here's what I think. Yeah, you could probably set it to do that. And I would, imagine that some people do. But here's what I think probably people are doing, right? It's like Captain stumbles out real hungover and just goes in the transporter and beams himself twice to get rid of the hangover. And he's like, oh, all right, I'm fine now. Didn't even need coffee. I think he'd probably beam and filter out a hangover. Filter out whatever it is that gives you a hangover and just beam back in with whatever you need to be okay. It's just beam away this hangover.
You think that you think in the 23rd century McCoy would just give you a pill or give you an injection, the hangover would go away. I mean, look at Star Trek 4. I mean, a lady regrew her kidneys who was on dialysis.
That was great. By the way, that was I love
can't
that.
Believe it. She grew a whole new kidney. I can't believe it. And she's smiling, and I thought that was cute. That's one of my favorite moments.
Remember when Star Trek did comedy and it rolled off very smoothly and didn't leave us wondering, the attempt at comedy in Star Trek Picard episode, was it 9 when Riker and Troy reunited? And it's the only moment for 1 minute that it felt like Star Trek was that some changeling came in and roughed up Riker and he just takes it. But then it makes a move towards Deanna. And for the only time ever, he's he stands up. He's like, you son of a bitch. You know what I mean? He goes at the changeling and of course he overswings and of course he gets owned, but I was at least he stood up for his wife, his fucking, even though it's, Marina Sirtis, whatever. It's the one moment, at least Jonathan Frakes probably had to fight for that too, but it's all right, well, as long as you don't actually connect with the punch, you can try to protect her, sure, as long as it's ineffectual and it actually ends up being her who saves herself. But there was that weird conversation where she says that the changeling that they sent to her had her fooled for a little while too, and she didn't suss it up until a couple of days. And he goes, how did you know? She goes, because it was just like you. It was bad at sex and good at pizza. And I'm thinking, don't we remember that the Betazoids can't read a changeling? They can't read them at all.
They can't. So I forgot. I
don't think they can read them at all. Chat will save us. Can Betazoids read changelings? I think that they know they're unreadable. That's all they know.
I mean, what was the time of Betazoid? So yeah, Luoxana and Odo.
Luoxana and Odo, but I think we get further into maybe the Dominion War strands of DS9 is when we find this shit out.
And I know is there any other Betazoids? Were there any other Betazoids that appeared besides Luoxana in Deep Space Nine? Because I don't think she appeared beyond season 5. And then the Dominion War was season 6.
Yeah, Magil Barrett probably isn't there past season 5. Maybe she says it to Odo, but don't we start finding emissaries from the Dominion in seasons like 4, right? And getting some strange takes on the aliens coming through the wormhole, sort of telling us to, like, stay on your side and don't mess with us, right? We got a few of those incidents. So maybe, I'm pretty sure the Betazoids can't read them, but even if they can, let's just say they can. Riker is her Emzadi. She has a special connection with him, and he, even as a human, is able to feel and empathize with her and kind of echolocate her with it. So
yeah,
the idea that she would be fooled for days, and then people are just like, well, it was in her house, and they probably were afraid for the child. And I'm like, the child they sent hunting for poisonous prey with a bow and arrow. And they're like, well, she couldn't defend ourselves. I'm like, no, we saw their house. It was a really, really secure place. It was a fortress. In fact, it had a force field, and there were weapons hidden everywhere.
In that. Okay, so before we get into that, I want to say hello, Sub Commander Tal, big TOS expert on Twitter. I love your tweets. I love commenting on your tweets.
See you, sir.
Gives me the pleasure of being a TOS nerd, because that's exactly what I am. So he says original Star Trek was about contemporary people with traditional emotional lives and relationships, just set in science fiction milieu, at least originally. Yeah.
And also I would say that, also when they would talk about things, they weren't afraid to go with something that was maybe in the air, but it was like always they made sure it was fairly just and fairly clear. And if it wasn't, like, they would do it in a way that I would call observation and commentary rather than shaming and instruction.
Yeah.
Right now we get shaming and instruction. Like,
yes.
A private little war. Look at a private little war.
The Vietnam. Yeah, it's the Vietnam allegory. It's two sides. You have the Klingons providing. I think the hill people with flintlocks,
right?
Against
the Klingons are providing the village people. They're literally the village people or the town people, I guess. But the village, let's call them the village people because it's more fun. The hill people are Kirk's friends.
No, I thought the hill people were the ones that attacked the village people.
The villagers are the ones who the Klingons make contact with, and they give them the weapons. And what they're doing is they're faking an industrial revolution on the planet. And it was a very clever twist, right? Like giving them, like, it's like, oh no, just like the technology just advanced. And we're presuming that the Organian treaty just means that the Organians are like benignly sort of preventing open conflict. So we're subverting that, which is a real life thing. And Star Trek weighs in pretty solidly on the idea that, like, fighting a war but we get in first. By the time that episode comes out, it's first. I think that episode airs at the height of the Tet Offensive. By the time that one comes out, it's a little bit.
When was the Tet? I don't remember when the Tet Offensive was, because I remember Private Little War.
February 10th, 1967.
Okay, so this was after. I know Private Little War aired, but I think they probably wrote Private Little War probably right around that time, or right after that, actually. So
we see a couple of episodes. Like, Gene Roddenberry was a war veteran, and he didn't really equivocate. That episode, though, still kept it. It still kept it. Yeah, and he fought, and he was brave. And here's the thing: he also understood military manners. But in a Private Little War, no matter what side of the conflict you were on, like, it didn't beat you up.
No, I mean,
if the peace-loving hippie and the World War II veteran dad could sit on the couch and watch that together and both enjoy it and talk about it without anybody feeling like a piece of garbage.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. So here's another rule that was said in this particular document, in this particular Bible. So he says don't tell. Wait. I'm trying to see if I can find it where they talk about putting in a message, but it says you after this. This basically says the story comes first before you can interweave a message. They want you to interweave a message, to truly give this, the story a lot of a purpose in being told. But it doesn't come before there has to be a solid story, and they don't want preaching. Like they want to be it has to be entertaining first and foremost, but at the same time, just food for thought. Which doesn't seem to be the case now. I mean, like you said, it's now stuff is very degrading and very and just it
instruction.
creates a particular thing, and that's the argument you say when a lot of people online say that Star Trek was always the word that rhymes with, and I use code words because I hate saying the word. The word that rhymes
welcome
with
to euphemism tube, man, right?
Yeah, exactly. I love talking code. It's fun.
Don't you love it? Okay, yeah, no, I do that too.
I mean,
okay, so
I might have my own arch
fine,
enemy, my own version of Khan Noonien Singh listening in, on the conversation.
Yeah.
If we go by the book,
I call my guy Admiral. Volcano Man. Yes, hours would seem like days.
Exactly.
You go right on quoting regulations, Nerdporeal.
I love that. I love this.
The dialogue in that movie is so great. Think about something as simple as Khan and Sulu's encounter has an in-world explanation that works, which is, all right, so the people's big pet peeve, Sulu is Chekhov is not there yet, right?
Yeah.
We see Khan reading on God mode. Who's to say Chekhov isn't on the ship already? And certainly they're going to talk about the time that Captain Kirk almost got killed by that crazy alien, crazy Earthling that we found from the past, who almost took over the ship that time. And I think that he just probably saw him on the manifest because the dialogue is perfect. He doesn't say talk to you or see you or spoke to you or met you. He goes, I never thought I'd see your face again. Probably looked very quick. And it's like Pavel Chekhov's looked really like speed read his whole life bio. He's like too loyal. Went to the next guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Chekhov knew him. Come on. It makes sense.
Yeah. So here's okay. I finally found the thing right here really quickly. So this is Article 4. Then, with the firm foundation established, interweave it in any statement to be made about man, society, and so on. Yes, we want you to have something to say, but say it entertainingly as you do on any other show. We don't need essays, however brilliant. So, yeah, and then
Wow.
So this is very, very important. That's something that I think
times too. The message was that something that doesn't exist yet might one day be a threat. Like think about the M5 computer.
Yeah, the M5 computer from from Ultimate Computer, right?
Right. The Ultimate Computer. It's it presages Skynet and more close to home 2001: A Space Odyssey. But
if I remember correctly,
Star Trek did its first stuff.
If I remember what happened, what went wrong, it was because Dr. Daystrom encoded his memory or he encoded his engrams into the computer. And the thing was, he was having psychological problems. And that's basically why.
He was unaware. He was blithely unaware of how crazy he was. Yeah. And you know what's really funny is the memory engram has been proven not to exist, but they left them in Star Trek.
Yeah.
The memory engram is something that doesn't actually exist. It was an incorrect medical guess. Because, think about the advantage in, magnetic imaging and stuff since the time the episode was written, right? We're talking about they had X-rays. We have, sophisticated MRIs and more we can see inside a brain. So they found out that there's another way that we develop our personality or the way it's stored or the way it happens. So the memory engram was incorrect, but they've left it in Star Trek. So memory engrams continue to exist in Star Trek. And yes, what happened was Dr. Richard Daystrom, science man, who was a little crazy, he was the inventor of all the systems that made the Enterprise work by the time he was 22 or 23. And then when we meet him in this episode, I guess Daystrom's 50, right? So he's had a long dry spell of not this guy, he was this thing that you're doing wrong. He solves a slew of technical problems with a series of inventions, along the lines of the positronic brain. He's Noonien Singh level kind of guy. And even after he messes up and does all those bad things, they leave the Daystrom Institute in there, and even Roddenberry. Yet there he is, and very well portrayed.
I was listening to your video or I don't know if it was your video or stream. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I was listening to you talking about especially the Daystrom Institute that they actually show in Picard season 1. And I liked how you commented that it was one of the most boring things that looked like it belonged in the 1970 science fiction. I'll be honest, the freaking movie Rollerball looks more the freaking movie Rollerball from 1975 looks more technologically advanced than that shot of Daystrom, the Daystrom Institute. I think
I'm putting all my money on Houston in the Rollerball Super Bowl this year.
By the way, I want to read JT Kirk's comments. You have Nerdporeal, you have Genesis, but you don't have me. You're gonna have to come down here, Nerdporeal. You're gonna have to come down here. I'll do far worse than kill you. I hurt you, and I wish to go on hurting you. I shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the heart of a dead planet, buried alive.
Gone! Nerdporeal! One of the, and I remember at that time, people were like, there would be no echo in space. I'm like, oh, come on!
I know.
That was the greatest moment.
And what's funny was, I'm like, what is he screaming about? Then you realize it's all in the act. It's all in the act. The entire thing is all in the act. That's what's so brilliant about it.
I think the screaming might not have been an act because a couple of people had just died, and I think the act was that he was restraining his anger from that level until that point. He was antagonized to no end. We lost a Starfleet captain. He doesn't know what's going on with that Starfleet crew because now he can't trust Chekhov until he gets him cleared and figures out what's going on. And we've lost all of the Genesis team except for Captain
Terrell just
offed
himself. I mean,
self-deleted.
The death of a captain.
And by the way, one of the more gruesome phaser deletions we see,
oh my God.
The Wrath of Khan phasers are the last ones I ever want to be hit by. Hit me with a TOS phaser. Just light up and go away. Bad enough.
I mean, and they only did this in Wrath of Khan. When they shoot somebody, you hear them scream. And I mean, it's getting under my, it gets under my skin. Like that. I mean, there's horror. There's a lot of
Star Trek 1. Is it the transporter scream?
Yes, that was creepy too. That was extreme. That was creepy too with that.
No, I mean, isn't it the same? I think it's the same scream. I think they reused the scream. I know the SETI eel for sure is the scream what is one of the screams we hear when he blasts the SETI eel and it makes that screeching sound. That's one of the things we hear when people are melting in the I think some of those screams are the melting in the transporter beam screams. I think they might have reused them because we know there's some TMP stuff in Wrath of Khan, like the Enterprise flyby.
Yeah.
We do reuse a significant portion of that movie. And I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, motion picture was the second most expensive. If I remember correctly, the motion picture was the second most expensive movie in the 70s. The only budget that was higher was Superman.
But the thing is, the repeat business saved it. And did you finally see that very last director's cut I don't even know where to find it right now, but the one that came out about a year and a half ago?
I got it right there. I have the 6 movie collection. I have the 6 movie 4K collection that has that. And then I bought the special edition right here. That's what I got. I'll go grab it.
So, go for it. For those of you who haven't seen this one, ladies and gentlemen, in that movie, we never really saw V'ger in any other cut, and we would keep getting one director's cut after another, and we finally lucked out and got this final director's cut where they claimed, and Nerdporeal's back, they claimed with this director's cut that this was finally the very most finished version of the movie they could give us. It's not longer. It's just that scenes I think that were just too soupy to make out. There you go. Wow. So that's for when the alien archaeologists get here, think of what they'll have to work with if they find that.
I still haven't opened this, as you can tell.
You know what? I saw it in the theater, and first of all, I really enjoyed. Wasn't it a mind blowing when you got there and after the trailers? Well, for me, there were no trailers. When there weren't either. The score played, like, wow, I kind of forgot that. And then I Googled it. That was the last movie with a score released until The Hateful Eight in 2016 or whatever it was, 2017. Yeah. Wow.
They play Ilea's theme, I believe, is what that's the overture. So
I think we also get a little bit of the V'ger music and Jerry Goldsmith. A lot of people say John Williams is their favorite composer, and I say, there's 1 and 1A. One is not greater than the other, but I prefer Goldsmith.
John Williams' Star Wars soundtrack is iconic. but he's taken ideas from other places. Like the whole Death Star Empire theme is basically derived from Gustav Holst's the planets, the Mars movement, the Mars segment.
I've seen a couple of videos where people try to prove that out, and I would say there's more than just a little bit to it. And I can play a couple instruments. I know a little bit about music. That's one of my hobbies. And you know what? Yeah, he for sure said this guy doesn't have a good enough copyright, and I know how to enhance this just like so many percentage points differently to massage it enough. But yeah, you can hear a few things. And I think one of the ones that was the strongest parallel was it Han and Leia's love theme where they found the strongest parallel. But in movie one, there is no Imperial music. It's just almost right out of the prop box or the prop room sort of sound. When we see Vader, it's like, it's just like they reused it in Rogue One.
Yeah, so all the Death Star, the Death Star type of theme is what I call it, and and then they use it in the Battle of Yavin theme. But yeah, so they borrow quite a bit from especially from the Mars segment of the planet. So. But like the Jerry Goldsmith stuff, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was borrowed, but like I was seeing in the theater, listening to the entire 5 minutes was pure magic. Like I loved the music of Star Trek so much. I went to 2016 for the 50th anniversary. This was when I was a sweet summer child, and I was looking forward to the new Star Trek show. I mean, we knew that they were making a new show. We knew about Star Trek Discovery.
And we were hearing good names connected to it too, like Sonequa
Brian Fuller.
Believe it or not, yeah, Brian Fuller and Sonequa Martin Green had a good reputation. And that was a red flag for me. It was a big star.
Yeah, that was a red flag
for me. She was okay in Walking Dead.
I didn't like her in Walking Dead. Like I thought she was just
her character wasn't that great, but I thought she was fine. Like. Yeah. Think about it. Like Sasha goes from being like I guess she goes from grim to like self-delusional. Her character arc is just lower and lower. When we meet her, she's already not too good. Like I think doesn't her brother die like within 2 episodes of a
and what's funny is her brother was what's his name Clyde in Orville, and he was I forget his character's name in The Expanse, and they kill him off.
Oh my god! Yeah. Well, I mean, he's the
Chad Coleman.
We're trying to redeem him slowly, I suppose. But does anyone doubt that Clyden is something of the villain of the Orville, right?
Yeah, I like they kick Clyden off, but then at the very end, I don't know how you felt about Orville season 3. I had some issues with it.
I liked most of it. I think was it Doomcock who said that the second Topa episode. While the messaging being what it was, throw that out the window for a minute. They were very unmilitary and took insane risks and did things that didn't make sense in the context of how military they had been up to that point. And that I thought was a very valid criticism of that episode. And I had to say to myself, in that particular episode, it was the one where they let her go to the planet sort of unescorted. And they've been told she gets captured. And they've been told not to let her go to the planet. Yeah, they're just a little too unmilitary in that one for me to. That wasn't a very. You know what the thing is?
You're talking about the one. You're talking about the one where she gets captured by the other Mockers, right? And they take her to a detention camp. Like they go to Havina's planet.
They sort of grab her with authority, right? Like they have the right to arrest her or some crazy thing like that. And then she's on their ship and they negotiate their way out of it. And like, is it? I think it's the one that has Dolly Parton in it, right?
I don't remember. Now that you say it, I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember. The thing is,
Havina, because Havina's a big fan of Dolly Parton because she literally in season 1 she quotes the song 9 to 5.
And then they bring her on the environmental simulator on the Orville to help her deal with something else. I think it's in the same episode, but the bottom line is that Kelly and Ed were told not to do this thing, and it was like. One of the things I loved so much about the Orville was that their codes and their rules and their and as silly as they could sometimes be, they were like proud of their uniforms the way Starfleet people used to be. And I thought that every week we got a Trek-worthy idea out of them. And it's a shame that it was that episode. If it was meant to be more to them, if they thought that was their version of subtly doing a message, because it was like you kind of messed it up with the way Ed and Kelly have been shown to be very, very professional up to that point. And then they break like 3 rules in a row. It's like, oh, it'll be okay for Topa. And it just doesn't track with the rest of the way they act.
All right. I want to say thanks, Ray Lucard, for subscribing to my channel. So I have a thank you message from a certain Jonathan Banks right here.
I swear, if you ever show your face out there again,
I won't.
Ever.
I won't.
Ever.
I won't. I promise you.
Oh.
Welcome. And JT Kirk, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming out. That was thank you for doing it. Definitely love having you. So yeah, sorry for that. Sorry for kind of interrupting that. So but yeah, the whole thing with so Hivina, so that you have Lil Topa and you have Hivina. You have Hivina basically telling her, you want a secret? I have something I can tell you, but no one else. You can't tell your parents. You can't tell anybody. You know how creepy that was?
Yeah.
Ever since then, I've been calling her, even because I did Orville after shows, like late at night. I call her creepy Hivina now because she's just I liked her character in seasons 1 and 2, but then this season she just turned into
messed her up this season. Yes, that arc. And you know what else? In the other Topa episode, we never took our foot off the gas. There's no B plot in that episode.
I mean, they cut between
bit of a distraction.
They cut between I think it was Bordas and Kelly. So here's the thing: Seth MacFarlane himself, Captain Mercer, he took a major step back. Like he wasn't involved in any of the action whatsoever. So the one that was taking point for all the action was Kelly, Grayson, Commander Grayson. So she was the one that went and sailed into the ocean in that dream episode, the episode where they're being manipulated by this Q-like entity. I forgot her name. So that there was that, and then there was also she's the one that kind of goes in this episode, and her and Bordas go and rescue Topa from the detention, the Moclan detention facility, and this is the same episode. So they're cutting in between that rescue and the very Star Trek 6, or maybe not even the council. They reuse the council scene. So you have what's his name, Captain Sheridan from Babylon 5 is presiding over this council.
Bruce Boxleitner, the Scarecrow.
Yeah, Bruce Boxleitner. There you go. He's the one that's running. He's running the show, and they're cutting in between the issues between the Moclans and that. I don't even remember. I have to watch it again. It's been a while since I watched season 3. But they basically get kicked out. That's the episode where the Moclans basically get kicked out by the Union. And so
isn't it sort of like it's not working out and they decide to start seeing other alliances? It's like it's not a total break, but both sides have a finger wag at the other, and it's a step back and kind of diplomatic isolation. Like they're not going to war. They're not adversaries, but they're just you know what? We don't know about this. And it takes a major threat to get them to start working together again. And even then, things aren't quite the same. We're going either, and that's what's a shame about not getting a 4th season right now is I want to know how we square things up with the Moclans down the line, and I want to know how the Krill fit into this, and I want to get a final closure on these goddamn Kalons who are a threat to everything.
I was so disappointed with that. And I wasn't the only one that felt this way. So season 2, you had the whole identity part 1 and 2, where we find out that the true motivations of the Kalon is to basically wipe out organic life. Then season 3, we find out,
goal if ever I've heard one. And that was they're the entire season 1 of Picard.
Yeah, they're the existential. Yeah, and unlike season 1 of Picard, Orville believes in the whole multi-season arc, so they actually follow up on stuff. They don't just forget about stuff and
they're not so one note as to have the complete loss of one entire faction be the stakes of every single story. I can't think of one where that hasn't been the stakes.
Yeah.
And always it's a secret society within a secret society that's doing it too, by the way.
Yeah, that was stupid. And the
I kept getting him messed up with the Yuuzhan Vong from like Star Wars, and I'm like, what are these people trying to do to my damn brain?
Like Tal Shiar, I can remember. Jud Vash. I'm like, seriously? Can you come up with something better than that? Well, but that's beside the point.
Original.
Going back to the Orville, so season 2, I mean, there's still, I mean, the Mocklin thing was something that we kind of saw coming, but the season 2, the whole idea of them going to peace with this very different society, the Krill, was a big thing because everybody had to band together to fight this existential threat, and this existential threat being the Kaylon. Like they are the ones that will kill you regardless of what you are. So it's up to organics to work together, and they undid that in Orville New Horizons. And what's even worse is they end up somehow being on the side of the Kaylon, the existential threat. Like I was expecting like Dominion War type of stuff. I wasn't expecting all of a sudden. I wasn't expecting the Kaylon to be the at the end of the show. The Kaylon ended up being the allies, and the other organics with the different ideologies are now the villains. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I like the episode. I like that episode with in episode 9. I like that episode. I love the battle. I mean, it was very Star Wars. It was very trench run. They had the fighters, but they were on the planet.
We're not talking Picard here. We're talking Orville, ladies and gentlemen, just to orient anybody. We're thrown off by the word trench run. It's gotten a dirty name in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't have the reputation. The words trench run, Death Star trench run just don't mean what they used to anymore. When Hollywood sends us their Death Star trench runs, they don't send us their best. They don't send us Wedge and Biggs and Luke. They send us Data. They send us Robot Picard. They send us whoever, 7 of 9, the best as ever, Hanson of 9, whoever. If we call her Hanson, do we get in trouble for dead naming?
I don't know. But the whole idea that they just came up with a weapon in episode 9 that just beats the Kaylon, and they do this stupid, they do this, this Oppenheimer type of, the implications of our weapon that we just built with that we just came up with in an episode. I'm just like, really? Like this weapon looks like something out of Super Mario Galaxy. Like it looks like something directly out of a video game. It's a ring that expands and then destroys all the Kaylon ships. And this weapon is a massive weapon. Now it's going to be in the hands of the Kaylon, or the hands of the Krill and the Mocklins, because now the Krill and the Mocklins are the toxic bad guys allied together. We're going to have this fight over we're going to destroy this Kaylon ending thing. And I'm just like, okay, that's worthy, but just the idea that they made the Kaylon, I just didn't like what they did. I thought to me, it undoes what season 2 did. And because of that and the way it ended, and it even ended with a wedding and all that, as far as I'm concerned, that show is dead. I mean, that show is gone. I mean, it's not coming back. It's been over a year now.
Look bad, but I will say this: if anyone's smart enough to make money in Hollywood and keep possession of their own intellectual property, it's Seth MacFarlane. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, some of these, like the worst case rumor we heard was they cut down the sets and put them in storage. To which I say, you know what? Maybe MacFarlane was just like, after this strike, people were like, we need that production space. And he's like, might have negotiated and made himself a premium there by giving up the stage, and has more money now to benefit from it while he polishes his script and tries to line up schedules, because no one knew when that strike was going to end. It went on.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone thought it was going to go on as long as it did. Was that the longest one ever, right?
I think so, yeah. Even longer than the one in 2008.
Yeah, and that destroyed a lot of shows too.
Yeah, I mean, the one show I was watching at that time was 24, and that 24, like, there was such a gap that they actually made a movie in between the 6th and 7th seasons. So But by the way, Admiral Teag is now a member of the Nerdporeal Continuum. Thank you, Admiral.
That's right,
sir. So
thank you.
we have to extend a warm welcome right here.
All right, now I feel welcome. I highly recommend it. It's a bargain, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Think about subscribing to the Nerdporeal right for him. He's great, and joining the channel. And please hit the like and follow buttons for my pal Nerdporeal.
I appreciate you. So, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, now that you're a member, tell people why they should turn on the bell for notifications.
I don't know if you should turn the bell on or not. I heard a crazy rumor about that one, but you know how misinformation flies around on YouTube. I don't know. I heard that maybe the notification bell might be what they're using to zero in on the unsubscribing. Because if you ignore a certain amount of notification bells, that activates some long dormant bot that they haven't thought of or that they love having there.
Yeah.
So I've heard like crazy stuff about the notification bell. So I'm just saying, like, subscribing is good enough. And, probably what I think is following me on Twitter is actually more important than following me here. Because I ran into someone yesterday who said I was just looking for your show and YouTube had unsubscribed me. So, I mean, that's just a real thing they do. And you know what? You're not going to go call out Paramount and Disney and not run into a few problems. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. What do you think is in the bigger pickle? Star Trek or Star Wars?
See, I can see a fix for both. Both fixes are relatively easy, but the will to do them is really weak. But I think that the easier one to fix has to inherently be Star Trek, because what we can do is we can simply have a story where we don't even have to go back to our original heroes. How about like what Discovery said they're giving us, a new crew, a new ship, a new adventure? Just throw us a new ship. They're somewhere far away from everyone else where they can't interact too much, right? They run into something. They themselves chase it down the way Kirk chases the Gorn. We get a strong captain. We get a strong performance all around. We get a space adventure worthy of a space adventure. It's not 10 hours long. It's like a 2-hour movie or 1 hour, like 2 1-hour episodes. You know what I mean? Like all good things. How long is that if you take out the commercials?
Hour and a half.
90 minutes. Yeah. 90 minutes. And it's great. That's the best new movie with any of the new Trek crew in it. It was a TV show, but that's a different story. I mean, there's a way to save Star Trek. I would say just another ship in another area. And at some point, you mentioned that Admiral Kirk has given notifications authorizing something you've already done late. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a Star Trek trope. We've seen it a couple of times. And during that, we get confirmation that the Romulans are still there. And we show the star date that is after the Kelvin incident, thereby proving that the Kelvin incident never happened, thereby wiping away all of the implications of new and Kelvin Trek. Because I got a really good chance to talk to a really good source at a member live stream. And then again, thanks to Pop Culture Minefield, I got to hang out and watch RoboCop and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Tom Connors. And I just grilled him about Star Trek the whole time while he was telling us about the Turtles. So it's like, so how many licenses are there, Tom? And so I did hear a few different things. And he had a lot of information. I'm trying to see if I can even keep it straight in my head. But this is a high stakes year for them getting out some kind of movie. There may trigger a lapse in rights just because of the amount of time. I think they're 9 years out now, right?
2016 was when Beyond came out. So, and apparently,
by the end of this year, it'll be 9 years out. So yeah, they'll be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so they got this guy named Toby Haynes is going to direct, and Seth Graham-Smith is going to be writing. That's what they're saying.
No, it's not. I looked at him. Seth Graham-Smith's other credit is the Lego Movie in 2017. This placeholder writer, he's being given $200,000 to pretend to write this movie. They're not going to let him near it. They had to fire the woman who was writing Captain Marvel, who was attached to the original movie idea. The original movie idea has been scrapped over and over. JJ's got nothing left. He's going to put it all into this. Who's going to back this movie? Who would back this? I can't see it happening. There's been enough angel investments in this. company of his.
How many like there was the original idea for the fourth movie that never panned out was, and this was as early as 2016, right shortly before Beyond came out, that Abrams was like, oh, we want to bring Chris Hemsworth into this, somehow have him come back even though he's dead, as Kirk's father, and then have and then of course they said, oh, we're not going to recast Anton Yelchin because he unfortunately passed away. But yeah, they wanted to do that, and the thing was the studio was expecting them to take a pay cut, and they're like, no, we're not under contract. We don't have to take it, and they decided not to, and they walked.
That was the most unfortunate thing. It was two different fluke things. Did you read the what happened to him?
About what happened to
he had a recall.
Yeah,
a car that got recalled weeks later.
Yeah, he had parked his car. He was trying to open his gate, and the car
was improperly installed. It was two different people failed him there. It wasn't his fault in the least.
Yeah, so the car car went back into drive when he was out of the car.
No,
and it just crushed him. It crushed him into the gate,
which should have popped open under the pressure, but didn't because it was installed improperly in a couple of different ways. He only had to deal with the fence because that was installed properly, and he did the perfect combination of things to make that rear-facing camera trigger the reverse. Because what it did was it pinned him. Drive, yes. I guess it would have he would have had a wrecked up car, and we'd have Anton Yelchin, and we would have preferred to have him back. But I think their preference is to replace him with that woman who's like an MMA fighter and sort of their Gina Carano, the woman who spoke sort of like Yoda from that planet and beyond.
She was in Rebel Moon, the same actress.
She's good with the martial arts moves, I guess. I would have to rewatch Star Trek Beyond, but I don't really have a great desire. Star Trek Beyond got me back to the movie theater only because of the fact that it was going to be Simon Pegg and the things that he had done and his reputation, and the fact that it wasn't J.J. Abrams. And I thought maybe, just maybe. And that movie, while horrible, was less bad because, at least for the most part, they acted like the characters we remembered. Kirk was at least brave. Spock did not melt down and cry even once. Bones was not running around like an idiot, hyper injecting things left and right. And for the most part, they calmed down Uhura just a little bit, because we could call some of these other movies Uhura and her weird friends.
She's shushing Kirk in Into Darkness, and I'm just like, you're the captain, Chris Pine. You're the captain. Act like the captain.
That's the problem with New Trek, is that Star Trek, they keep saying, oh, they're not a military. The way that they were saying they're not a military, there was like a war going on that was sending home 200 Americans a week from Vietnam during the filming of this show. So when they were saying like they weren't a military, one, it was to keep people from turning off the fucking show. And two, it was also, they had a mission of exploration first, but every single thing they did was with military protocol. Approaching Amini R7, assume standard orbit laid in, assuming standard orbit, sir. Yeah, exactly. And everybody, and Spock didn't necessarily always repeat Kirk's orders, but there was like, for things like weapons and stuff, we have confirmation a lot. And to see the way they do that in New Trek, like we see the command of the Titan passed 3 times for between Federation personnel, right? And we see that it's this long computer thing with the AI to talk to the computer about how you give the command to this person and that person, and you verbally cede command to the ship. And it was just to make Picard look bad, and just to make Todd Stashwick look bad, and just to keep people looking dumb. And in the scene where the ship gets taken over, what good does that security do? They just skip the part where she deals with that, and she's sitting in the chair twirling around smoking. There was more smoking in Picard than there's been in the last 10 years of anything else I can think of. Cop shows, dramas. More smoking in Picard than there is in...
Shapeshifter smoking.
What's a gritty street drama police show that you could think of? There's less cigarette smoking in SVU than there is in Picard.
What about The Wire? The
Wire has less cigarette smoking than Picard. This like cigarette smoking on 8 or 9 occasions in 10 episodes.
By the way, I just watched The Wire for the first time. It took me a while to get into it, but I got into the further seasons You know what's funny is that show stayed with me. So you know what? I think I like it. I think I like quite a bit now.
Isn't it The Wire was people from the X-Files and some people who ended up going to Breaking Bad, and that's why it's strangely compelling, but not they didn't really keep the team together enough to really hit like solidly, but it was might put it this way. They could hit for a high average, but that show wasn't like home run after home run like an X-Files, you know what I mean?
I don't know.
And I didn't watch The Wire a lot. I understand it was a slow burn.
The
Wire, yeah, what's going on.
Yeah, The Wire was the one that was on HBO. That's the one that's actually, it's not just about the police. It's actually about the entire city of Baltimore, and just like the game, as they put it, the game, you know, the political game, the the crime game, all that. So, I mean, it goes into. I mean, you have the drugs on the corners. You have the corruption in the shipyards. Everything, the stevedores, you have City Hall, you got the education system, you got the Baltimore press, the concept of false reporting, was in that final season. Each season was about some different aspect of Baltimore and everything. So whereas the Shield, I think what you're talking about is the Shield. I haven't seen the Shield. I want to see it though. That's one show I haven't watched yet.
I don't know. Maybe I'm getting confused. For a while there, you had to have HBO, and you had to be like I think all of us can proudly say there's a blind spot in my cultural nerdism where I was having an awesome life for like 10 years. You know what I mean? Like there's a few things I don't remember about like the end of Deep Space Nine and the end of Voyager there. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I am so glad that I didn't pay a lot of attention to some Deep Space Nine and some Voyager, because now I have fresh, unspoiled old Star Trek that, while at the time I thought wasn't so great, is absolute Shakespeare compared to what we get these days from these people, where it's just absolutely ridiculous. It was just, and I've talked about this to other YouTubers, Nerdporeal. What do you think of this? Would you go to this business? What do you think of this? A dinner theater in the style of medieval times, right? We have that arena down at the bottom, and you have a symphony there. And what you do is it's Star Trek arena, and there's like a 2-level stage, like the bridge, and then like where like the knights would fight in medieval times, like you have like the planet simulated, right?
Yeah.
You act out the bridge part, and you have a symphony play like the music from the show, and then you have two stuntmen like really duke it out, like Kirk and the Gorn, and throwing rocks at each other, and you do the whole thing, and you bring in the Metro.
Kind of like something at like Disney World. You're talking about like something like a reenactment, like a Disney World. Like I've seen something like that.
More like a
Indiana Jones.
I'm thinking about this. You serve alcohol at this thing, right? And whatever faction, like you could go sit with the Romulans, and you get like Romulan ale and like Romulan themed food, and all your servers would be Romulans. Or you could go sit with the Klingons, and you could eat gack, and you would have blood wine, and all your servers would be dressed as Klingons, and you have cosplayers as your servers, and you could sit with the Vulcans if you're a vegetarian. You know what I mean? You could go there, and I would sit with the Romulans because I'm thinking that's where you're going to meet the hottest, most unstable women.
I got a question. Have you ever, and you know what that's making me think of now, and I missed out on this.
But you would go
the Star Trek the experience. You ever been to the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas?
I'm on the East Coast, so although I have seen what is probably a beautiful but terrifying city in Baltimore, I have not seen Vegas, but I'll get there one day. I've still got a few trips left in me. I don't have to report to my parole officer anymore. I'm allowed to be on the internet and go anywhere I want in the United States without any kind of permission.
That's great.
Unlike Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, where he's exiled to Megan's Law Island, but that's a whole other story.
That's true.
Did you make it through that movie? Did you walk out, or did you stay through the movie?
Oh, I stayed. I tried to like it. I wanted to like it. I tried to. My brother hated it right away. I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I got to go see it again. I read all the reviews. I read what people were saying about it, and everything that people were saying kind of rang true. So I went and saw it again, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh, because one thing I did notice right away is that they made the weirdest choices. The choices. I'm looking at my brother. My brother's looking at me when he throws the lightsaber, for starters. Like him throwing a lightsaber
in my theater was a stunned silence. One person kind of awkwardly laughed, and from the other side of the theater, someone yelled, "Yo, shut the fuck up!" at the person laughing. because I was so annoyed. A lot of people were angry right then and there. And I was like, I didn't want to be there in the first place. Someone dragged me there because this happened at both before The Force Awakens and before The Last Jedi, but not before The Rise of Skywalker. My social media posts made my friends convinced that I actually had some form of deep depression because I said, this Star Wars movie is going to be garbage. And they're like, you have nothing to base it on. I'm like, I got like 4 hours worth of J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies that are really horrible and like 7 seasons of horrible Lost that don't make sense. He's never cobbled together an ending. He's not a good storyteller. He throws mysteries that he can't solve out there, and instead of solving them, he refreshes them. And you can't keep going forward like that, never being able to give closure. He's a terrible, terrible storyteller.
Yeah, and have you seen anything by Ryan Johnson? I've saw like what was that one that he did with
Glass Onion? Oh, did he do a Bruce Willis movie?
He did Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis. They get sent back in time and they get killed by their younger versions.
Looper.
Yeah, Looper. That's it.
Yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt was supposed to play his younger version.
Is Ed Norton in that too?
I don't think so. No.
He's cross associated kind of heavily with Johnson, right? Isn't he in the first Glass Onion or whatever? Benoit Blanc.
I don't know. But
tells you all you need to know about Daniel Craig, by the way, that he hated being James Bond, but he loves that stupid part.
Yeah. So Radioactive here says Admiral Teag, the medieval times equivalent dinner theater concept in Las Vegas is the Tournament of Kings at the Excalibur Hotel.
That sounds like it's worth seeing. Honestly, the Vegas level version of Medieval Times would be cool. I don't know what it is in other towns. The one I saw it in outside Orlando in Kissimmee, Florida. And it was a really good night out. It was worth the money. My color section won. And I think what it is an incentivized combat contest where it's like you're not trying to kill anybody and you're not trying to hurt anybody, but like the guy who wins probably gets an extra like couple $100. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Incentivized skill show, stunt show. No one wants to hurt anybody, but like it's nice to get that extra $200. I guess they fought pretty hard. I was entertained. In the words of Maximus, I was entertained, to answer his question. It was a fun night out, and I got a little tanked up, and it was fun. I would say a Star Trek equivalent of that would probably make money because of how bad Star Trek is, and because the fact that people still do miss that kind of really good Star Trek style storytelling. Look how fast people took to the Orville. It's not around all that long, and look at the kind of power it has. Look at the kind of social media following and presence it has. Yeah.
Like, I couldn't believe like I was watching season 2 of I was watching the Orville. What's funny is Orville and Discovery came out roughly around the same time. And what's funny was the Orville was the one that looked more like Star Trek than Discovery.
By far. Hey, let me ask you a question that I've been asked by people in my chat in a meta sense, and I've always wondered about this one. In that last season of the Orville, is the one thing that they did do that maybe we could agree on that might be true is Charlie represents New Trek, and they try to redeem her because she starts out as a New Trek character and ends her life as a Star Trek character. At the end, she's a Star Trek worthy character. And at the beginning, she's all woke and angry, and she's a bitch for a while, and she's an asshole, and I like when Ed took no shit. Was it her that he took no shit from and kicked off the bridge for not giving the blood?
I honestly don't even remember. Probably, maybe.
My favorite moments in the Orville are when they showed that they're very, very much dedicated to their chain of command.
Yeah, I agree. The Charlie
worthy moral military.
Charlie just started off as someone who was totally disgusted by Isaac because Isaac is Kaylon. So,
but also she was pretty woke. Like she kisses another woman before she jumps into the life pod. Like they did a bunch of Trek things.
Yeah,
and she was like adversarial towards everyone.
So she hates Isaac because she never got to tell the other woman how she truly felt, and that's where the pain comes from. And so she never knew how the other woman felt, and all that. And I said this on my after show.
She won me over. I think that they redeemed Charlie, but I think that
what's funny is when I was doing my discussion, I don't think anybody ever came to like Charlie. I don't think people. she's not as, I didn't think she was as
I
bad
don't
as.
have to like someone to say that they were a good Starfleet style officer that I would serve with.
Yeah. So, but a lot of people, yeah, like once again, um, there were points where I kind of understood, but at the same time, like her saying that, and I kind of get it, but at the same time, think about it, like, if the other person gives up her life for yours, what that should tell you exactly how that person felt about you.
Well, but here's the thing. I think that shows us the first they redeem her a little bit, right? But then they get rid of her in a heroic sacrifice. I think that was kind of in a meta way, Seth saying, "This is how I felt about this is how I feel about old Star Trek," and then her arc was to bring her back to, "This was what I loved about." I'm sorry. Her arc is, "This is what I hate about new Star Trek," right? Because she's all these things. She's angry. She's adversarial. She's also kind of a little bit of the bestest ever in one episode. And
she has this ability to see fourth dimensionally, which is what,
that's when she gets ordered to help Isaac.
Yeah, so she creates this. So she creates this. Her and Isaac create this weapon, and that this magic weapon that just shows up in episode 9, and that beats the Kalon. And I forgot what else it was, but yeah, it was. There was points where she was practically unlikable, and even as a Star Trek character, it was kind of hard to grow, or hard to like, and all that. So I want to read what Pops says. So Pops member says Glass Onion was utterly terrible. I haven't seen Glass Onion. I can't comment.
It was utterly terrible.
Okay, I forget what the only thing I know.
Detective story solved by convenience and withholding information.
Glass Onion. It's so funny because when I think, what I think of when I think Glass Onion. I think the White Album.
Sounds like a bad drink. It sounds like a bad businessman's drink. I'll have a Glass Onion, and my friend here will have a martini.
I think of the Beatles song. I think of the Beatles song from the White Album. Walk into a glass onion.
Is that where it's from?
Yeah.
I knew he wasn't original enough to
They're
come up with it
talking
on
about the
his own.
strawberry fields, where nothing is real. There's but there may be a place you can go. Walk into a glass onion. Sorry,
I never knew that lyric.
That's the third track on the first disc of the Beatles White Album.
Does the song have a name?
What?
A couple here and there are Beatles songs that don't have names, or have names that are so obscure.
The name of the song is Glass Onion.
Okay, so you know what? Yeah, that shocks me. Here's the thing: I have a stack of Rolling Stones records, and that's my other hobby. Is I play the guitar, and for a while there, for every 100 subs, I was doing a song and playing it on the guitar. And the last one was "I Won't Back Down," but then I kind of got a bunch of subs really quickly. And it was an awesome thing, but I'll take it. Hey, they've stuck around, and I thank them all. But it's been a new world since, like, I guess the end of November.
Okay, I mean, I never played guitar, but I do have a musical background myself. I play piano. I played piano.
Okay,
I haven't played in years, but like I can read music. I know music. I can read music. I can read notes. I can tell you what notes are on the page, on the staff, and all that, and with the rhythms and the key signatures. I can identify all that stuff. So,
for those of you out there who aren't musical, I want to explain what Nerdporeal is able to do is about as hard as writing 2 different letters to 2 different people with each hand at the same time. So you're writing to one person about something with one hand, and another person to something else about another hand with the other hand at the same time, because you have to play both the rhythm and the bass to play the keyboards or the piano, so to speak. So that is very difficult, high level of musicianship required. I play guitar and bass and sing and a couple other things, but mostly play guitar.
Yeah. This gentleman underneath me, Dempsey, is a musician himself, and he's made some incredible music for my for one of my videos. So yeah. But yeah, like it's cool. It's cool who we get to meet on this side of the on this side of the internet and all that, like I like to say. So that's cool. So going back to music, I know you said you like Goldsmith. Do you have any other favorite Star Trek composers? Like, do you have a favorite original series composer? Even if you know all the different composers.
In fact, if I ever do make a will, I'm gonna say when they bury me, play "Let My Heart Go On," because it's a Star Trek composer who wrote the song, right? So that's a good one. James Horner wrote my favorite Star Trek soundtrack. It's the best one, even though it's not Jerry Goldsmith. I absolutely love the soundtrack for Wrath of Khan, and I just think of that beginning of that movie where we see space and we just hear that monotone. One note, and then and it has the music. Yeah,
I got some. I actually have some music here. I actually have some Star Trek music here stored on the on my StreamYard. So
I've used that little trick that you pioneered with the is it Fred Steiner music from the end of Charlie X.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I could get away with. I know I could get away with this. I'm gonna play this one, man. I didn't give you credit though, but the first few times I did it, I just put your show in the browser and played it. I'm like, let's just give it up to Nerdporeal sub so we can play the music while we set up next week's show.
Yeah,
I use that one. I use that one. I use that cue. I use just the horn part though.
Yeah. So I really like Fred Steiner. I mean, everybody knows Alexander Courage, you know, the theme, the main theme. Well, he did the soundtracks for Where No Man's Gone Before, The Cage, and
his Star Trek music is, we would say this. He's the guy whose music most captures a sense of wonderment and a sense of fascination with space. Like the Captain's Log song is Alexander Courage. The music they played when they recorded the Captain's Log is Alexander Courage. To give you an idea. So he did some of the best optimistic Star Trek music in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. Some of the Fred Steiner stuff is more some of the more brooding, some of the more like this one, for instance, you know, some of the darker tones, some of he did Fred Steiner did the cello arrangement of performed the cello arrangement of Alexander Courage's original series theme. There were different versions of. I mean, I listened to the VHSs. There were different versions of the original series theme, especially from season 1.
One of my favorites is, like I said, you played the one from the end of Charlie X, and it's so gloomy and so sad and so perfectly morbid for the subject matter. And honestly, this could have been end music for an episode of the X-Files. Again, what I loved about Star Trek is it could be a very different show every week. Like that week, we meet a child who's marooned on a planet and meets godlike aliens, and they imbue him with a certain amount of power. And Kirk figures it out after a certain amount of time, manages to max him out. An idea we had never thought of before. You know, it's like in a time before video games, he like stressed his power bar, pushed it all the way down to 0, and then what was it? The Thasians could come and intercede and say, you know, Charlie is just too dangerous to hang out with you. And he's like, we could trade him. And they're like, no. We made him far too powerful. And then like, we got to.
And we can't undo it. We cannot reverse this. Yeah. And he's not going to. He
accepts it.
Yeah.
Kirk,
and
we see him he stops arguing. He's like, we could help him. And they're like, you really can't. And at that point, he doesn't say anything anymore. He stops arguing. And they're like, we're going to take him. And he kind of even gestures with his arm for people to like just shut up, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They want him gone. I can't.
Well, the thing is, then we get a brilliant, probably 2-minute performance by our actor of the week, who we've seen in other stuff. He comes out and he makes a plea for staying with them. That is a face turn at the end of the episode, where I got to say, that guy did a great job. He won me over. I felt so sorry for Charlie. So we went the gamut. Like, I absolutely hated him. I wanted him to go back with the Thasians.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we know.
And he's like,
you don't understand.
They're not like, you don't understand. They're not like us. They don't love. I want to stay.
I can't even touch them.
Stay. And I like how, I like what Echo.
Yeah, it was haunting. Yeah. Yes, the sound design, absolutely brilliant, spot on. And as he faded away with his humanity, and you're like, wow, Charlie goes to a fate worse than death. And like like just like where no man has gone before. Like, don't get godlike powers in Star Trek.
And
you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
don't,
so like he
do that.
vanishes, and then he had this little green. Well, it was supposed to be a ship, but it looked like a cloud in space. But maybe it's
originally
an incorporeal ship. It's an incorporeal ship. So that vanishes, and Charlie is gone forever. Like we never see him again. And there was another fate worse than death. And this is an episode that people mostly detest. It's the alternative factor. That's the one with Lazarus. That's the one where
eternal fist fight forever.
The fist fight forever. So this is the one where they had the winking out phenomenon, which is something I will say definitely in my great hunt review, something that Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time, has mentioned quite a bit, especially when the use of portal stones is done in Wheel of Time. Everything seems to wink out of existence, and I think he got that from watching Star Trek. That's my opinion. So, but yeah, the whole winking out phenomenon.
Star Trek used to inspire people rather than, take its direction by stealing stuff from independent video game creators like Star Trek Discovery did.
And Picard season 3. I mean, the whole portal weapon was stolen from Portal, and then they use it just for the sake of damaging the Titan A, and then the big demon jellyhead thing that orders Vatic around, orders her to discard this stupid thing. Oh my God, we're gonna have to get back into Picard season 3. There's so much to talk about.
It's just so awesome to sit here talking about it to the music. I sometimes play the bridge ambience and stuff like that, but this is great too. It's just an awesome tone.
Yeah. If we're gonna play, we have to play some Fred Steiner here. So, but
absolutely, like the gloomier stuff. This might be reused in of Bread and Circuses. I think this is when the gladiator who knew what he was doing kind of explains to the rest of them. It's like, you don't understand what it's like. We got to go in there and we got to make this work, or they're just gonna like gut us down.
Yeah. I'm gonna add a background here. Let's see. I got a few Star Trek backgrounds. Let's see. Here, this one.
There we go.
The Admiral Satian Picard.
That
great episode.
She's in Spartacus. I mean, we got a great actress. Isn't it?
Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons, yes. I believe she's in Spartacus, and that's a great episode. And that was a good one. And the other one, sometimes we saw murder mysteries get rolled into Star Trek here and there, but a lot of times what we saw more was a courtroom procedural, which modern writers fear to write. And I cite She-Hulk on that one and episode 3 of Strange New Worlds. But modern writers fear these courtroom procedurals. Just kind of have to learn the law enough to sort of throw it over the middle of the plate, and not offend people with something ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like you have to have some knowledge, and to do that you have to spend some money and pay a lawyer or do some Googling and have a brain, and so no one wants to do that. But Star Trek used to do well with a criminal procedural sort of thing, like the case of Ben Finney and the altered record tapes of the incident with the ion pod, or other things, but it wasn't the usual where Star Trek would go X-Files. There's a really good Next Generation one where a guy jumps into the plasma beam and Deanna kind of senses something because this guy was reliving an occurrence at Utopia Planitia shipyards years earlier.
It's called Eye of the Beholder. Yeah, that was season 7.
One of the less bad Deanna ones. Deanna ones sometimes could be really bad.
Remember the one where she's floating in space?
Where
are
circles.
you?
That was almost there.
I think that was the night. I think that was the Night Terrors episode, where they're all deprived of REM sleep.
Is everyone deprived of sleep, or is it only her having a weird thing where there's also a Betazoid on the other ship, and they're just. It's kind of a little bit like the movie Frequency without technology. They're on either side of the singularity, and they keep reapproaching it and resetting time, right? So she keeps seeing it, or is it that they get close to the singularity?
Time? That sounds like cause and effect.
Are they rewinding time in that one, or is it that they get closer to the causal event? She gets more of the message. I'm trying to remember. It's a Deanna episode. You know what I mean, folks?
Yeah, cause and effect was not a Deanna episode. It was Data that was getting that information.
There was the one we were talking about before where she's kind of floating in the air and she's wearing the lavender outfit in that one. And she's like, who are you?
Yeah, that was night. I think that was night tears. Everybody else wasn't able to sleep. She was the only one that was sleeping, but because she's an alien.
When she slept, she had crazy dreams.
Yeah, I remember
hallucinates
Picard. There's only one thing I remember from that episode. Picard gets into the turbo lift, and Patrick Stewart just starts screaming, "Ah!" Like because he thinks the turbo lift is going to crush him or something. And it was one of the
he thinks it's out of control or something like that, and he's pressing the panel over and over or something, and he's on the floor ready for impact, screaming, and it opens up to the bridge, and everything's fine.
Yeah. So what's weird is, and this is terrible on my part, whenever Patrick Stewart screams like that, I always laugh.
Now I do.
Kind of like Shatner. Kind of like whenever Shatner screamed or something. I always in the original series, I would laugh. I just laugh and everything. Like remember Plato's Stepchildren? Remember Plato's Stepchildren with the Plutonians, and they have the Jedi like telekinesis, and they keep making Kirk and Spock dance. Like they force Spock to tap dance, and Kirk pretends he's like
telekinesis might be closer to the point. They were pretty evil.
Yeah, Kirk was pretending to be a horsey for a little person Alexander, played by the great Michael Dunn, who was Dr. Loveless in the Wild Wild West.
One every time on Tenor Gifts for original Star Trek memes. It's too prominent. I don't know why it's there. And what sucks now is there's been so much bad Star Trek that when we try to send a GIF for Star Trek, you gotta go through like 4 rows of Mikey Spock shit to find like William Shatner. Right? Yeah. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, they're trying to erase the show that we grew up with and loved. You know what? I don't know about you. I guess I'll ask the questions. How about this one? Do you remember like the first time you watched it? Right? Because I'll add in this one. I watched it with like my family a lot, like my dad a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's like a show that everyone could enjoy together. So like, what's your earliest memory of watching it?
Well, I remember it was on quite a bit. Like it would be on. TNG was the earliest Trek that I encountered that I knew was called Star Trek. And when I was a kid, I didn't have the strongest attention span. I thought it was boring. I thought it was just some boring show that takes place in space. Adult stuff. Because I was in the animated stuff. So I watched a lot of Looney Tunes, watched a lot of, all the classic cartoons from the, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, everything. Watched quite a bit of that. I used to play video games. But
here's the Charlie X music, isn't it?
Yeah, this is all Charlie X. So I remember, but I've come across TNG quite a bit. Picard was always the first captain I've seen. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to love watching the Three Stooges. My dad got me into it. So it was on each night. I think by the time I was 8 or 9, this was early 90s, I'd have my parents buy me a blank VHS, and I would, if I was lucky enough they weren't in the living room, I could use the living room's VCR to watch and record episodes. And TNG was always on after the Three Stooges. So there was one time where I fell asleep, and I accidentally recorded past the time the Stooges ended. And I ended up recording an episode called Thine Own Self, which was the season 7 Data episode where Data is like, what is he like? He has amnesia and all that. I forget. I don't know if he's supposed to be like.
I don't remember. The one where Laura kind of sends him negative emotions and it sends him into a spiral.
No, like Data's just like he's wearing like it's on like a planet. He's on like a. He's like on a regular. I forget what the scale is, but he's on a planet that's protected by Prime Directive, so he's in an outfit and all that. And he just shows up, and he's like, "I don't know who I am." And then this one family, befriends him and this one family befriends him, takes him in, and then they find out some other people in the town think he's a demon, so they kill him. They impale him at the end. And he figures out that the water.
That's when they hit him in the head and expose some isolinear chips or whatever. And we see some glowy. It's pretty cool. And he's doesn't remember who he is or why he's there, but in the back of his mind, and it was cool. It showed us that he was like a human because he stayed on task in one weird way. He's like still going to look out for the people, and he rediscovers the problem he was sent there to address very quickly. And he starts thinking the same. He's like, oddly enough, I seem to have brought with me the very things that would help this.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the A plot, and the B plot was Deanna Troi trying to become commander. So she had to go through
That
like
was
some commands.
that was a very satisfying. When she's a B plot, I can handle it.
Yeah.
That was a satisfying one. Although I think up till then, the most satisfying moment was not with her usual co-stars. I think it was when Ronnie Cox slapped her down and told her to wear a standard uniform, stop being prima donna.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
wannabe.
Bad wannabe, and then we got Dempsey's back
For a certain formality on the bridge.
Mm-hmm. We have certain
Here on, and
formality.
I'd appreciate it if you wore a standard uniform.
Captain Jellicoe.
Doesn't he then go back to writing and like then just look at me? But that'll be all, right? He just,
yeah, that'll be all. Hey, can you have someone? Can you have someone get rid of this goldfish?
You know what? What's so weird about that episode is that there needs to be conflict between Riker and Jellicoe. But the fact of the matter is that they're quite similar, and there should be no conflict at all. Like with Jellicoe saying things like, to me, I'm like, this is exactly what Will Riker would want to hear. He'd be like, I like my old captain, but I think I get used to this guy. It's like, the fact that he didn't even have the Delta shift ready is out of character for Will Riker. He would have been like, I do have the names here, sir, but I would warn you against putting it into effect so quickly, and maybe have a meeting with me tomorrow about whether or not to do it. To not want to do it, and then later on there's like a mission that'll help everyone out, and he's like, I don't want to do it. And it's like, why? It's like, because I'm going to pout and be a child for no reason. It's just like, dude, Jellicoe and you are exactly the same, man. Like, you display almost exactly the same traits. Just like,
that's why they hate each other. He's like, I don't like you either.
They were too much alike. I think that he was maybe maybe Jellicoe. See, I think that Star Trek The Next Generation lasts long enough that we see people doing things with characters to improve other characters in times that they know they can use it. Like Captain Jellicoe is used very well to improve several characters by their conflict with him, because here's the thing. First, he comes on and wins our respect by seeing that our captain just likes him just fine. Thinks he's very capable. Has a very cordial relationship with him. And he doesn't mind Picard at all. And him and Picard see eye to eye, and they're totally on the same page. And they're both cool. And he has no compunction about leaving the ship in command. Absolutely none. He has sentiment for the Enterprise. That's it. If we see him doing any kind of hesitating, it's because he loves his ship. It's not because...
I think there was a little contention. I think there was a little contention before Picard left. And then Jellicoe's like, well, Enterprise is mine, Jean-Luc, and all that. So, because I think he was trying to speak up for Riker. He's trying to say like Riker's a fine. He was trying to speak up for Riker.
Oh yeah, I think he says like, it's like one thing I don't understand is that executive officer of yours, underachiever, slacker, low life. He didn't like him at all.
No, he didn't. Oh, but like at the I like how Jellicoe he saves Picard. I mean, Jellicoe's the reason why Picard's alive.
He was a very good officer and very competent and very capable. And Jonathan Frakes was wrong to be so resistant to him. And honestly, in my situation report where I Jellicoe, I would have said that Commander Riker did a fine job, but was uncooperative and insubordinate throughout the mission. I would have just said it. Professionalism needs development. He should go to planet duty for a little while, learn about how it's important that one hand works with the other, instead of being he was a rebel for no reason, and that was like, I'm gonna sit in my cabin and play my trombone rather than help out my comrades. It's like, for the most part, like the thing about Star Trek that we love is that any one of them would risk their life for the rest of them, and all of them collectively would risk all of their collective lives for any one of them, which is what. And a lot of times they'll all risk themselves to do the right thing because the right thing's the right thing to do for unknown race. Like, this planet's being attacked by Klingons. Well, we can't let that happen.
No. No. Oh my gosh. But I like I'll be honest, Chain of Command Part 1 and 2 that was one of many palate cleansers I was watching while covering Picard season 3. Like, for a second I thought maybe it was me. Maybe I'm just not into Star Trek anymore. Maybe I just don't appreciate it or something.
They did a good job of putting that out there because they want us to stop calling them out. They want to purge out the legacy fans. And what I found is there's still an appetite for what happens on this show, despite what they've done. People don't want to give it a click or review or subscribe to a service, and they don't want to watch it if they have the service. But they love hearing it from me. Why am I the leader of the largest new Trek watching community, unironically? all on my channel. We all watch together. One view. They got one view. So I've done a lot to siphon it down, and I got to review it. That's part of what I do. I've expanded to other stuff, but the way they've been doing Star Trek lately is the fact that Prodigy project went away means that they might be able not to self-destruct, because that was too much nitroglycerin for them.
I think they think, I think what, Netflix, somebody picked it up. Somebody picked up
Netflix,
or Amazon,
but it's out of production. They're not paying for more episodes. There's nothing in production. In development might mean whatever it means, but no one's paying to make more right now. So it's just done, right? So what if Janeway will come back? She likes money. I mean, I don't blame her. I don't have a problem with people doing that. I have a problem with Patrick Stewart now. He overplayed his hand in publicity. During publicity, he said a few things I think he wishes he had taken back, about how he disdained that people looked up to Jean-Luc Picard, and we can't unsee that. You know what I mean? And it's like, because I looked up to Jean-Luc Picard, and here he is telling me that he finds that a little bit, it's unsettling to him that guy, and that he didn't think the character is particularly good or moral. I'm like, you know what? Damn you! You played Shakespeare. I understand that Gene Roddenberry's not Shakespeare, but how about being generous to your biggest financial benefactor and saying, like, it was a pleasure to be able to bring my talents to focus to play Jean-Luc Picard, someone that people did look up to, and just leave it at that without being, William Shatner's never gotten into trouble, and he's supposed to be the one with the wild mouth.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this about, like, I felt like I was watching the Patrick Stewart show instead of the Picard show, because they even went as far, and I even though I didn't watch season 2, they went as far to go, because one thing everybody knows about Patrick Stewart, I'm sure you know this too, is that he came from an abusive childhood.
Okay. Yes, I remember that.
And so they decided to incorporate that into Picard season 2. All of a sudden, his mother, Yvette, his father Maurice, and his mother Yvette, and him were a victim of abuse. And of course, what about Robert? What happened to Robert? Oh, he's off in some school or something. So they came up with a bunch of crap.
He had agreed to help enable it, so he didn't have to be around to watch it. He's like, I endorse the abuse, father. And he's like, good job, Robert. Go out and tend the grapes while I oppress the rest of the family. Somebody has to do some goddamn work around here. God knows your malingering brother won't. I'll teach you to talk about the stars all day.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say this. Maybe Picard's father was simply realistic and pragmatic, and they deserved it. But I don't know that he was an abusive alcoholic. I think they probably drove him to it.
No, it's just
if I had to raise new Trek Picard.
Yeah, it's just they basically. I mean, once again, they're self-inserting Patrick Stewart into, instead of it being Picard, they're making it about Patrick Stewart. I mean, I think it's vanity.
It's not like making William Shatner's character have his birthday and be from the same state. That's totally different things, than taking his, like, the fact that Captain Kirk likes horses just is because William Shatner is not going to do that stupid Generations movie because he read the script. Do you subscribe to the idea that people had before the internet, that I get blamed for a lot? I wish I had originated this, that the Nexus plot device is so flawed and so poorly written that the two Whoopi Goldberg speeches overwrite and destroy each other, and overwrite and destroy the possibility you could escape.
The whole idea that that part of you is left there, that you
can even leave it all. The part of her that he sees,
time is no meaning there.
Forget that. Like, for instance, if we obey the rules that the Guinan in the Nexus gives us, then she shouldn't be there, which means she has to be a hallucination. He says, how do you get to the Nexus? And she's like, well, not on a ship. How did we see her get there?
Yeah.
On a ship.
We don't. Yeah, exactly.
He got there on a ship. Her and Tully and Soran's ship gets hit by the Nexus. And apparently they fly right into it because it's predictable, because he predicts it later. But and then, like, he's like, so why are you here? And she's like, because I'm not there. And he's like, but you're there. And she's like, because only an echo of me is here. And he's like, well,
because she was ripped. Because she was ripped from there.
The impression
so to
would
speak.
be that her and Soran were transported out as they made the transition, and we got copies on either side, but they don't say it. They don't really say it. So it's like Occam's razor would dictate that it's dream Whoopi is just talking about some nonsense here, and he's hearing what he wants to hear because we can trust. How about this one? Her one piece of dialogue where she goes, all these things are what you wanted. You get what you want here. If you say you want something, you'll see it and you'll believe it and you'll experience it and it'll seem real. And he's like, that can't be true. And then she says you can't get that on a ship, et cetera, et cetera. And he goes, what I want to do is go see James Kirk and leave the Nexus. And then, darn it, what he wants to see happens. So it's like, it really is the infinitely upgradable dream machine. So after she said, if he wants it to happen, it will happen, and then it happens.
And that's why they killed his family. That's why they killed Robert and they killed Renee. I mean,
that's another thing I hate about Generations. As I look over at the VHS tape I have of the movie with the holographic cover from way back when in the day, and I watched this movie so many dozens of times trying to reconcile it, and people were saying before the internet, like, they may have written Star Trek to like a unreconcilable end with the Nexus because of course he would see that and of course he would think he would leave and of course he would think he would make a difference. He just got told that by someone who can't possibly be there. And then a lot of stuff just backs it up.
Yeah,
you can't really disprove that one because people say Enterprise disproves it, where we find the piece of the Borg ship on Earth. But I would say that Enterprise disproves the movie First Contact. That there was a first contact that goes very much like we see in the movie, but that's Picard's Nexus dream, because when we see First Contact in Enterprise, one, we don't see that, and two, when we see the Battle of First Contact or the Battle of Earth in the movie First Contact, the Borg cube is vaporized and the Borg sphere is vaporized. They go to the Federation ship and take over the engine room to start the Borg incursion on the Enterprise. They don't have their own ship after the middle of the movie.
Yeah,
peace lands in Antarctica, so that means that was something else. But they don't have to exclude each other.
Yeah, I was surprised that they were there, that they went that direction. I'll be honest. Like, I'm just like, I know that you depend quite a bit on 24th century stuff, but why even make a prequel if you're just going to keep using 24th century assets? Like, honestly, that was my issue with Enterprise at first.
Enterprise, you know what? You took me down an Enterprise rabbit hole today, and gosh darn it, I think I wrote down some notes here about Broken Bow, and one of the things I circled was that they accidentally gave away their speed and how fast something is. So warp 4.5 is 18,640 miles an hour, 40 miles per hour. Because I'm sorry, it's 1,118,400 miles per second. That's how fast you have to go the 3 billion miles to Neptune and back in it was there and back in 6 minutes. So I had to do a bunch of conversions.
Warp,
I wrote it down and I did it.
So warp is not like, I always thought warp 1 was basically the speed of light.
That's what I think. And warp 1.1 is the speed of light plus about 10%. At that level, at least.
I always thought like warp 2 was twice the speed of light. Warp 3 was 3 times.
I think warp 2 is probably twice the speed of warp 1, but I think that it's possible that warp speed might be 3 times warp 2.
And then remember like
4 times warp 3.
And then the original,
fine.
Yeah, in the original series you could go. In the original series you can go up to warp 14, but then in TNG era they changed that to warp 10 is now you're in infinite space. You're everywhere.
No, that was
and then you turn into frogs.
Voyager. That's Voyager episode Threshold does that one. In Star Trek TNG, I don't think the only warp episode in that one is one that's supposed to make us think about the environment, where we wear out like a center of the Federation area by going through warp. We having too many ships drop out of warp in the sector, and it causes a quantum singularity that makes all space unstable. And what they find out is they have to go like normal. They have to go like below warp 1 to the edge of their system before they kick in their warp drive. So they're like, we're now 10 years removed from our first contact back with the Federation because of this like terrible sea of like horribleness you've left us in. That might be the one with 238,000 enterprises, where they all start appearing through
parallels, like in parallels.
Yeah, I think, and we slam that door shut really fast in that one, but we see a couple of interesting alternate takes in a few seconds. But that's as far as any multiverse should go. But I think this new Star Trek movie where they're talking about having Picard be in it and stuff like that. I think what they're going to do is try to go time travel, multiversal, work on have it be an all Star Trek movie, try to confuse the canon, confuse the license, and get it all to go together, because their lawyers are better than their writers. And if they don't get this off the ground by April, it can't come out this year, which means, and Tom Connors was said, if I remember correctly, said, quote, if I remember correctly, quote, pretty sure if they don't make a movie this year, there's some problems with the rights. So if we could just get through this year without the movie being made, there might be some serious implications. And also, JJ's got nothing else, so he's really trying to do this. The problem is, who's left that wants to do it? I've heard that the last couple of seasons of New Trek have been funded by hitting people from the political class, political donors.
Yeah,
which explains 23 producers and bad stories. It's like, I want to be governor. I want to be governor, and my nephew wants to write Star Trek. He has a great idea, or he wants to write Murder, She Wrote, the reboot, but he could use his idea in your Star Trek show.
Yeah. Wow. But I didn't even know they were doing like another Picard thing.
They're going to do another Picard thing because they got nothing else that they can get funded. The thing is, I think they're trying to mix it up with the lore of their movie enough to get away with saying they made their Star Trek movie, because they got to get something out the door this year in theaters. Because remember all those years of the announcements, we kept knowing that the one thing we had pretty sure been divulged was that the movie only had to be in development. They've burned through that time. It's been about 9 years. By the end of this year, it'll be 9 years. Mm-hmm. You got to get your movie out by like the 10th. I think that these next 3 months are absolutely critical, because the movie has to come out this year or next, or they might lose their rights.
Yeah.
Which would be a great thing. By the way, that's cause for celebration, because let's face it couldn't be worse. And if they desecrate it worse than this one, we'll just keep calling it out. And I guess we'll have a good laugh with our friends while we watch it together. But we're not going to give them a lot of views, and we're not going to endorse it, and we're not going to get crazy and call it good. Like, I didn't understand the banality of a lot of the other critics and a lot of the more established people than us who embrace this. And we won't name names, but like, we both had exchanges on Twitter, or I guess we already did, and I found bad faith in the argument with the person. They said to me that at the time of the show Picard, that I said, listen, like, why should this thing be an Admiral? And he goes, well, because of that episode Measure of Man. And I said, no, this just means that in 19 years the robot can vote. It's a robot upload of a file of Jean-Luc Picard. It's not him. It's a CGI ghost of a file sourced off Jean-Luc Picard, who had substantially changed. So I don't know why it's an Admiral. And I asked him, why is it an Admiral? And his response was, because the Federation has a 100-year history of sentient androids. And I'm like, that's not really an answer or good faith. And what are you talking about? The Corby androids, where you have to soul suck the person with the vampire android making machine? Like, what's our great android technology from 100 years ago before Picard? What was so great? The synths on the moon, that worked out real great. Or on Mars.
Since
I thought it was a great touch that the synth that self deletes after they do all the damage is called F8. That was such subtle, the subtle brush of symbolism there. Don't you appreciate those fine character touches? F8 just like tattooed right on the head. It was like, oh, and every human was mean, and every human was like out of shape and horrible on Mars. It's like, how did anything get done there? And then, like, there's an overflight.
What is this stuff? What is this shit on a stick or something? That's what they said in Picard. I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah, and this is Star Trek. It's too profane. And by the way, tell me if you know this one. There's an overflight of Romulan-looking ships firing down on Mars while the robots are having their attack. We never get anything more on that.
No.
They look Romulan, though. They definitely look Romulan.
They did.
And they're attacking, and we hear that they just like the Federation is totally in the dark as to what happens. So I guess they made the most slamming episode they could and walked away, and executive produced after that. Like, oh no, the synths had secretly built Romulan-looking ships to frame the Empire. The Empire. They might as well be the Empire. The amoral don't you miss when before the Federation was an amoral matriarchy?
Oh yeah, I miss when it was supposed to be we're supposed to have a hopeful vision of the future and look up to Starfleet and the Federation and all that. It's crazy. Maybe post scarcity is maybe it's not so great of a thing as after all. I don't know. But but once again, like Picard season 3 with with Picard season 3 with the freaking the shapeshifters. Like
that was so stupid.
I was also listening to Terry Matalas talked about how because of Section 31, injecting the virus into Odo and all that, and then and the Deep Space Nine was about our characters, performing one of the greatest altruism, and I mean Odo basically they captured Sloane, and they managed to go into his head. They go into his head, and they get the formula. They get the counter virus, and then Odo uses that. He gets injected. It works, and then he saves the female shapeshifter who has way more agency than Vadic. So when people say Vadic's one of the greatest Star Trek villains of all time, no.
Why?
No.
Because her father was great.
Her father was a great actor. I mean, I think Amanda Plummer's a great actress. I think she could have been great.
Human member, Barry. So is Michelle Forbes. By the way, he said that Michelle Forbes, he filmed a shot of her beaming away. She's alive. And he said that there's no reason to believe that Commander Shelby is dead at all. She was phased from both sides on what looked like Fleur de Lis. Yeah.
Yeah, she's dead.
And people and the thing that made me sick was people being so obsequious and banal a gift from Mr. Matalas. So I was like, oh, for the love of God. You and I could have written a better Star Trek story right on our own without any of that. It's funny that you money.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I think there was a good story there that they could have done. I think every character from TNG should have been reintroduced in the first episode.
Well, I mean,
where they are, and then they team up at the end of the episode to combat this new threat. They should have had a prologue, kind of like Lord of the Rings, to establish this new threat from the Dominion.
Here's an idea: have our friends from the Next Generation host a watch party on Paramount Plus. Have an event, have a day where you watch 10 essential episodes to understand Star Trek Picard. And I don't know, just put on the top 10 of the Next Generation. You can't lose, right? I'm Jonathan Frakes. Welcome to Paramount Plus. And then, between episodes, you'd be like, did you know that Armis was designed with garbage bags and KY jelly and toner? We'll be back with more Star Trek, The Next Generation.
I got a question for you. What did you think of them giving Picard a son? Picard and Beverly a son? Just out of the blue. Ed Speleers.
Picard didn't live to meet him.
Ed Speleers and all that.
It would have been nice. It would have been nice if Picard had lived to meet him, I suppose.
But yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Because he's the android, which they
why
never.
Did she yell at the android for what the source human did? I'd be hoping the android maybe didn't know and would leave me alone. Be
Yeah.
So I would have tested the android's memory a little more.
You know what I think they should have did though? Instead,
not had that storyline at all and never made the show.
No, what they should have done was instead of giving him a son, we find out that Rene Picard is alive. Maybe somehow bring back the original actor. The original actor from Family.
That darkens things, though.
The original actor from Family.
Things too much.
Yeah,
enough use him. Okay.
Original actor from Family, the one that plays Rene. He also plays young Jean-Luc in Rascals. Have him be part of this organization that they created for Picard season 1 called the Fenris Rangers, which I don't even understand what
7 of 9 was. And then you know what they are? They are the Knights of Ren. They're a MacGuffin organization that does MacGuffin things that are sketch, so that people who are associated with it can be called that, so that we know they're bad.
Yeah. So I mean, I think in this case, let's just say Picard has enemies now. He was with Locutus. They could still use the whole Locutus thing, and we find out the reason why The reason why the Chateau Picard was burned down was because of people who wanted revenge on Picard, people who lost people in the Battle of Wolf 359, and then
More realistic.
And this was a few years
would
later.
Benjamin Sisko be up there leading them with like a big beard and like an eye patch? Like, that's right, I lost my wife Jennifer. It has been a saying.
You know, it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting had they. It would have been interesting had they done. You know,
have
actually
like a bell riot outside of Picard's house.
Yeah. So Picard, because Picard's off planet, he's off. Promoting Worf and all that. So we find out that they kill. They kill Renee. They kill the mother. They burn the place, but they take away the kid. They take away Renee, and they fake his death. So everybody.
Do we find him as a drone?
Who is a drone?
Would Renee be a drone?
No, right? Renee would be real. Renee would be an adult, and he would be pissed at Picard. He'd be like, Picard, or like, Uncle, why didn't you look for me? And that would have been a great conflict.
Yeah, that's.
And then at the end of the season, they would have, Picard, at the end of the season, him and Picard work together, and Picard realizes he is not the last Picard, which was what Generations started. He would not be the last Picard. They wouldn't, and it would have been a more emotional, especially for people that felt Generations did, the episode Family dirty. I think that would have been a great way to bring him back. And then we find out that not only is Renee alive, and he's helping Picard, fight this threat, but that he has a family, that he's got kids. We find out at the very end, and Picard meets them, and he meets them with a Beverly. Maybe him and Beverly, rekindle their relationship, and they meet his family. And I think that would have been a beautiful way to end the saga of the TNG crew. And then, of course, the rest of them would have families. We'd actually meet LaForge's wife. Was it Dr. Leah Brahms? Because we never met their mother.
No, we didn't. But I don't know if they look like they could be Leah Brahms kids. But hey, why not? Did you notice that they got confused which one was an engineer and which one was a scientist? Because when they needed to be engineers, the scientists. I'm sorry, one was a pilot and one was a engineer. When they needed to do piloting things, the engineer was doing it. When they needed to do engineering things, the pilot was doing it. They got it wrong. They named their traits like all characters do, and then later on they did the reverse of what their skill sets were.
Yeah,
it was so ridiculous. It's like, do you read your own notes? That's a better story than what we got. The story we got was unnecessarily dark. Picard was a deadbeat dad. He was the son of a deadbeat dad. And then, the story was, Jack couldn't ever meet Picard because every time she tried to bring Jack back, they'd get attacked. It was too dangerous. And then the next line is, how does he get an English accent? Because he was in England being educated, which means she's a deadbeat mom. She split too, right? And left him on Earth. And then the reason that they couldn't get together is because he was all the way over in France and he's in London, and there's only transporters. And they're 160 miles apart? It's like a 90-minute plane ride. How long was a plane ride these days? I don't even know. Not very long. The fucking London to Charles de Gaulle Airport or whatever. I'm sure it's if we get it, again, their tech level can't be below ours. So he's on Earth for decades, 90 to 150 miles away from Picard, and they couldn't just go there in a world with transporters and see his father. She couldn't just communicate with either one of them. She got through to John Luke when she needed to on that short-range communicator in episode 1 from light years away.
Mm-hmm.
I was hating everything about that. I was just like, how could that communicator work? It was it was out of range so many times in how many episodes? And she sends it from how many light years away? And then they go there and compliment her John Wick skills and how military and evil what she did was. That one alienated me fast because I thought the opening scene really destroyed one of our best characters. Forget about the pumping of the rifle, which was stupid. The fact that she lures people in and deletes them and is extra brutal. She was our healer and our most compassionate character.
Yeah, and my buddy Prophet right here, he was the one that actually.
Hey.
So me and him did the live watches. It was just me and him, and then him, and a couple other people did the discussion the following night. But he noticed this stuff even before I did. So yeah, like that. Just the whole and the whole thing with that beginning shot, that beginning scene with the shootout and all that. When you find out that they're shapeshifters, why would they need weapons? Why would they need energy weapons?
And do they splash around inside their encounter suits like the Kool-Aid guy? Are all their organs just like floating around?
Like did the shapeshifters in Deep Space Nine? Did the Dominion founders? Did Odo himself use weapons?
Shapeshifters. I guess he did on occasion. I guess have a weapon, right?
Not really. He didn't use weapons as the constable. He didn't need to. All you have to do is turn your arm into a tentacle, and you could capture a person, or you could kill someone. Like the what's his name, Krajensky in the Adversary in season 3. You know, when they're chasing Krajensky in the Defiant, like he was able to kill without a weapon. Like he doesn't need a weapon to kill. Like I don't know why these shapeshifters have weapons. The mystery is what destroyed Picard season 3. Like you watch it now. I can't. I don't think I can't watch it. I cannot rewatch it. As a result,
the idea that there was a Borg ship inside the storm on Jupiter facing Earth, facing Earth, is something that we would see now. The storm would be somewhere. It has to be at least 3 times the size of the moon. That ship is inside the storm. The storm is at least 3 times the size of the moon, and the ship took up most of it. Like but the storm might be bigger than the Earth. The storm on Jupiter is huge.
Yeah,
it took up the whole thing.
Yeah,
we would see that now. Amateur astronomers would see it. Okay,
it's so. I mean, that was so
in the solar system. I guess it's not that well traveled.
So they have this. So they have the ability to link all the ships because they're smart now apparently. Not to consider the fact that there's Borg.
They don't maneuver, but they link together and they assume like pretty shapes in the sky. It's so stupid.
And so they have this super duper shield, but then they can't seem to pick up. They don't have good sensors enough to pick up. And Prophet said this. They don't have good enough sensors to pick up a Borg cube on Jupiter in the eye. Yeah, and then the whole idea that the Borg were the bad guys all along, that the Borg Queen was the one controlling the shapeshifters, just that was terrible. Like I've seen anime done better than that. I
guess the idea that we got a performance from Alex Creech is supposed to be celebrated, but like, what did she do? It was like blah, blah,
it was her voice.
Edgy.
It was just her voice.
Okay.
And apparently,
thank God she didn't have to go through that.
And apparently that was the Borg Queen's. Apparently the Borg Queen couldn't recover from that explosion at the end of Voyager. At least I don't fully understand how Borg Queens survive either. It's like they're alive in one area, but then it's like Kaylon primary. Like they can just reappear in another location.
Queen, or do you have one for every several hives? Or the Borg Queen thing didn't make sense. Voyager complicated the Borg so much. They used them way too much. And
the
only thing I will say about this, like in defense of Voyager, I do find it really enjoyable in the sense that the failed episodes of Voyager were still funny and entertaining in an ironic way, in a way that we didn't get from other Star Trek shows. Like when Deep Space Nine didn't make it, it could be a real downer.
Well, okay. Even Tuvix.
That episode actually very much helped the series because we saw that they had a dramatic ceiling and they weren't TNG, because that was kind of hived off the Tom Riker script, in my opinion. And I think that they were afraid I think they were unable to execute the plot cleanly and also shortcut the end too badly. And again, their tech level was below ours. She didn't try to clone him or store him in the pattern buffer. There was other alternatives.
They call Janeway a murderer. Like a lot of fans call Janeway the murderer.
She is. I call her Insane Way. I call her Captain Insane Way. Yeah, there's the right way, the wrong way, and the insane way. Absolutely, Captain Insane Way. One of the kookiest people on in Star Trek. Although I will say this, I give credit to Kate Mulgrew for coming on there and acting like a captain and never leaving any doubt who was in charge of the ship, to the point where it almost kind of hurt Chipotle. If they had anyone else, especially some of those stories where she was out on a further Star Trek limb than I ever put William Shatner intellectually a few of those times. When she has to take on Michael McKean when he plays the evil clown, who's an AI, who's angry.
I remember the thought.
Yeah.
That was a creepy episode. That was a creepy episode.
Interesting, though. It was interesting. It was deeply interesting. And he was like, the makeup bothered me. Everything about that episode bothered me.
Everybody's laughing, and then they murder someone in the dream, and then they die of a heart attack in reality.
Yeah. And then they pull like a dreamscape or an Inception on it or something. Like they convince the AI to go inside the dream within a dream, and then they jump out. It's like one of those kind of things. It's a little bit convenient, but his performance at it is like great. He's really creepy. And if you think about it, at the same time, he's doing good stuff in the X-Files too. We forgot that Michael McKean did so much sci-fi work.
I mean, he did that, and I loved him in Better Call Saul as Bob Odenkirk's older brother. I thought it probably one of the best performances I've ever seen from him.
I thought the last season of Breaking Bad was the strongest close I ever saw of any story, and I couldn't bring myself to go back to prequel it and watch it, even though it was the same people. And I'm sure it's really good, and I'm sure it has good performances. I can binge it and watch the 30 or 40 episodes that there are of it and get the story in a few weeks, and probably have a good time watching it. I'm glad that there's good TV I haven't seen out there, but that one I didn't invest in. I was so satisfied with the end of Heisenberg. I was like, that was amazing when my Baby Blue starts to play. And the cops and the lights and El Camino or whatever it was called. I haven't seen it, but I have an appetite to see it. Like, I care enough about a movie that only deals with what happened after Jesse drove away. That's interesting to me. Interesting enough.
I like Better Call Saul, but I don't think the ending of Better Call Saul wasn't as solid as Breaking Bad's was.
I saw a picture of what the Heisenberg and Jesse now, and they were just dressed up in the clothes they're wearing in the 90s. And Jesse's got like the gigantic pants and like the wool hat, and he's like Heisenberg is doing this thing. And it was just they crossed over to the last couple episodes, I guess, of Better Call Saul. And I'm sure they're both great. They're both really good actors. They
redid the scene from season 2 where Saul Goodman makes his first appearance, and they capture him and they threaten him. So they have him like tied up and right in front of a ditch. They actually redid that episode. We actually see what happens to them when they go back into the RV.
That's so cool.
So they actually, they brought the actors back. They wore the same costumes. Right
back into character. They're both great. There's so many funny episodes of Breaking Bad too. Like every once in a while, Breaking Bad would break the tension with a pure comic.
The RV, for instance. They're like, you don't have a self-destruct. Even the Enterprise had the self-destruct. I laughed when I heard that coming out of Bob Odenkirk.
And he's like, I just remember the part when they one of the times in Breaking Bad where they break down the SUV and they can't turn over the battery, and he starts yelling at him. Jesse starts yelling at him. They should be able to science his way out of it. He's like, you should be able to figure out something using RP to recharge the batteries. He's like, you're right. Don't they do something like they make some sort of P charger? It's like it'll take till morning, but we should be able to turn over the engine. And it was like realistic enough. It didn't have to really necessarily be totally accurate, but it was realistic and funny enough.
Yeah, that was great. I like that. I really like that one. That was a funny one.
And they're going crazy in the desert, running around in their underwear, yelling at each other, having breakdowns because it's just too damn hot, and they're doing a meth cook. And to cool down is go outside where it's 105 degrees, and they've driven like 10 miles off the road, and they're disoriented as could be, and their cell phones don't work. They can't get a signal. Breaking Bad was really good at something that Stephen King can't do. Write a story that has working cell phones. They find a way to disable them organically. They drive so far off the grid, right, that you can't see the cell phone. It doesn't matter. Like, they don't have a connection. There's no map. There's nothing. And So like they're disoriented as the rest of us. They're depending upon technology to get back to the road, and they've just been cooking in this oven for like however many hours it takes to do the bad things they're doing. And when they come out, they're a disaster, and they're having a meltdown on each other for like most of the afternoon and the night. And yeah, Heisenberg does science his way out of it, and they get back to wherever they got to go, and that leads to one of the ripple effects in his life with Skylar and other things. But in that final season where he goes and he sees Finn, and Finn tells him he hates him, that was like, I think that's where the final end of Walter White happened. That was the end of the end, and I guess we can't spoil the end of Breaking Bad anymore, right?
Nah, we can't.
Whistling with the garage door opener and the 50 caliber machine gun and the hacksaw, just the happiest could be, putting it together. Oh man, Heisenberg, the secret to Breaking Bad, I guess, can we sum it up in, he was a drug dealer so smart that he didn't need any muscle whatsoever. He never had any. He was his own muscle, and he was a cancer man. He was really, really in bad shape. He was not going to make it. He was terminal in episode 1.
And that's what enabled him to do these crazy things, because he knew he was on borrowed time. So, you know, you're gonna try to live. You're gonna try to feel as alive as you can. Go out with a bang. That's the
mistake that also sets him on the bad path. Is that a law enforcement agent happens to be his brother-in-law, who takes him on a ride along so he can experience life, and he sees Jesse committing crimes that he knows that he can get in on, and then he sees how much money's involved, and he finds out firsthand from the feds that it's not some kind of scam. There's that much money, and he's like, I've got to be smarter than some hopped up meth head. I won't do the meth, and I'll leave my family a lot of money. And it makes sense for a couple of years, and then I think they canceled it before we got a conclusion, and Cranston bought the operation out, and he's like, we're going to do 2 more seasons my way. And when we finish it out, what is it, 5 or 6 seasons? And the final season is it's 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they split the 5th season into 2 halves, so 5, 8 might be.
5.5. But they were all 90 minutes long, every episode, and they were great. All of those stories in that last season were great. And we just saw the price he paid for the life he lived, but he enjoyed being Heisenberg. We saw that in the middle there where he was on that criminal role. That series took us like up and down with him. We saw complete destruction and reemergence of the character, and then the death of the character again at the hands of its alter ego, and its need to still provide for Finn and still provide for his family to see if he can pull it off. And I won't say what happens, but he has some creative ideas about how to use a garage remote control.
That's true.
He really has creative ideas.
Yeah,
he kills what I call hillbilly Matt Damon.
Oh, Todd. Yeah.
Yeah.
One
of the best. And you know what? After all that seriousness, to have that scene, it was actually so comic, even though it was grueling. The way that scene goes down, it was gruesome, but that was hilarious.
Yeah, that Todd was a psycho. I can't even imagine what Jesse was going through in the final couple episodes. Like, it's nuts. It's nuts.
The insight and knowing Heisenberg the way he does is the only reason they prevail.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just for 6 seasons or 5.5 seasons, this guy runs a criminal organization that's highly dangerous, and he has absolutely no trouble with the law, and absolutely he has a lot of trouble with the law, he has a lot of trouble with other gangs, but it's nothing he can't handle. He's smarter than the police, and he doesn't need any muscle because he keeps finding ways to like set mob factions against each other, or at one point, he mixes up some explosives and just walks into their office and blows half of them up, including Moff Gideon.
Yeah, or Tuco.
You know what? Just real quickly, in The Mandalorian, The Rescue, what's up with Cara Dune's interaction with Luke and Mando's interactions with Luke? You know what I mean? How they don't make sense? I know we're supposed to talk. Are we allowed to rabbit hole this into Star Wars for a minute?
Sure. I only remember. Only thing I remember is they were on the ship. The Mandalorian ladies kill everyone except for Moff Gideon. Then Moff Gideon releases the Death Troopers while having a very underwhelming duel with Mando, because I think
And
Mando
the
has
Death
the
Troopers are
Beskar.
very Ultron. They were very Ultron, weren't they?
I don't know.
They kind of did like this like coordinated thing where they had to work together to catch up to the ship, and then like they latched together to get in. I thought they were supposed to, like, they reminded me a little bit of Ultron. I don't know.
It's been a while since it's been a while since I watched it. So it's been a while since I've watched Age of Ultron. I was like, Ultron, what are you talking about? Oh, Age of Ultron.
Yeah,
Marvel.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let's take it back to 30,000-foot view, and I guess we can reorient it on Star Trek. I'm not sure that John, as sabotage as John Favreau was, his name's on so many bad stories in a row, without redemption. Like, he's unrelentingly on so many bad, like Mando season 3, Book of Boba Fett, some other stuff out there, you know, and it's unrelentingly really bad. And Mando season 2 is a bunch of backdoor pilots that are like they don't like hold up to the second and third view.
Yeah, I mean, you had the Ahsoka episode. You had the you had the Boba Fett one. The way they treated Boba Fett, Boba Fett in episode 7 or 8, I was just like, okay, I know exactly what they're going to be doing. And then I see that they're doing a Boba Fett show. I was like, I'm not watching this. Because the first thing I thought was
was the bridge too far was the Boba Fett show too. It was just a little too dumb and a little too low effort. And we have to reconsider Robert Rodriguez now too.
Yeah, the fact that they denied Boba Fett agency at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian just told me everything I needed to know. So, because the way Boba Fett was described in the books and the OT, heck, even in the holiday special. He was a menacing bounty hunter.
Yeah, and he didn't have any problem playing people and hurting people. Like
That
was like
and he was dangerous. Like, he was a fighter. He knew how to fight. He could fight people.
And he was a man of few words, but when he spoke, he made sense. This Boba Fett was like an idiot. They're like, we're having a dispute over water. I was born surrounded by water. Yeah, the meme, like a bantha, right there. That meme. You know what? Let's be honest about this. Think about how easy it would have been to make that a much better piece of television. How about this? Instead of fast forwarding and having these sand people able to use technology, just poofing it out of nowhere, why don't we make that segment 4 or 5 minutes long? Since we had so much bloat in that shit anyway, right? That was the most bloated episode show ever.
Yeah.
Spend 10 minutes with him slowly bringing them up to speed and teaching them and encouraging them and show him mentoring them and show like one particular one getting a little better with his particular guidance. You know what I mean? Show him being fatherly towards them, more of a cooperation. Because up to then, he'd been there. I don't want to use the word on your channel. Their uncompensated compulsory employee. He had a free employee life. He had complete job security and health care for life. With the sand people. That's the best way to put it. And then like the dynamic changes, but the thing is, like, we're led to believe that he sort of understands them and bonds with them, and they're heavily analogized to the Native Americans. But when they have a chance to show him hanging out with them and interacting with them, we shortcut through it as fast as we can instead of doing something more interesting, like having him teach them and mentor them. So this way, when we lose them, like a couple of them, it'll mean something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead, we just have like fast forward, teach him how to drive, and then we'll go get this gun train thing. That's where they have the most accurate sniping in the world. Just stay away from the gun train. They're tanking shots from like 2 miles away at 150 miles an hour. Stay away from the gun train.
Yeah, it's a shame what they did with Disney. So
can I circle back to answer your question before we end though? To save Star Wars, I do have an idea.
I got another question for you.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious. Like, are you gonna continue to cover Trek in the future?
I'm gonna start doing westerns and military movies more, but I'm gonna keep calling out the new Trek, at least the live new Trek, because I know they're gonna throw a bunch of cartoons at us. And some people are saying stuff like Lower Decks is like a good show. I don't know about that. I'll say it's easily the least bad new Trek show. And least bad still doesn't mean good. You know what I mean? It's the least bad. But that showed us right there. We saw Kurtzman interfere with that and turn it into a disaster with the crossover to SNW, which is like just a terrible episode of Star Trek or whatever it is.
I was curious about that one. So the episodes that I actually did watch from season 2, just because sheer curiosity, was that one, and I didn't even finish that one. And then
It's bad.
the one after that, the one that
It was
the
the
infamous
musical
one,
was
the
next,
musical
right?
one. Yeah.
You know what? My assistant from a popular company was playing a song list based on like music from Trek, and it started playing something from that episode of Strange New Worlds, and I immediately looked at it and I saw the marquee from it. And I was like, never play this again. Never ever play this song again. And I was like, I got to tell you, I can't remember one song from that. I can't remember one lyric of one song. I remember at some point for a while they sing back and forth. I know I'm singing. I think I'm singing. Look, I'm singing again, to get the idea across to us. And they had one writer on that episode. One writer wrote all that story and dialogue and all of those songs and did all that. One writer with 23 producers. That needed like 4 writers, and like it was terrible, and it should have been a fever dream if you did it at all, you know. And PJ from Marvel Nation said to me that he thought it was being done to head off Seth MacFarlane and the Orville people, because he thought they were going to do it, or at least New Trek was afraid that Seth, because he's so musical, would do a musical episode of the Orville and really show up Star Trek. So they wanted to just do it first, so they didn't care if it was good or bad. And it explains too much to not have some piece of the truth in there too. They did it for the sake of doing it, and they're like, we can't wait to do that again. And they did another magical trip out episode with no circumstances. The way they, ooh, boy, Strange New Worlds is bad. No, someone has to call it out. I'm gonna continue to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna watch Strange New Worlds. I'm probably. I mean, I think Picard season 3 was the. I think Picard season 3 was basically the final nail for me. So, I'm not interested. Like, I am totally done with being interested in new Star Trek in the future. It's just one thing I do agree with you on, and this is something that is widely debated. I've had debates with other people about this. I personally feel, and this is something I agree with you on, that I would rather have them stop. I'd rather have them stop making new content than making this stuff that's calling itself Star Trek.
The years we got no Star Trek at all were better Star Trek years.
Yeah, I mean, I can still separate that from what I currently own. I mean, I have Enterprise, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, TNG. I do have to get a new set for the original series, but yeah, and this, like, but like I can easily separate this. Like, they're two different things. I don't even call it Star Trek. I call it New Trek. Like most.
I call it New Trek. Yeah, I make sure, and I don't hashtag it.
Yeah,
I won't hashtag it either.
Like I'm at the point now where I don't even want to call out like nowadays when you call stuff out, when you provide criticism. I mean, instead of they're just going to dismiss you. You're just going to be dismissed as a hater and everything. And then they have New Trek has its fans, and instead of using their brains and considering what the other people are saying, they do the same thing. They dismiss it, and then they criticize the critics instead of criticizing.
And they're going to assign you as a critic to a faction. They're going to assign you as a critic to a faction. They're going to say you're a fandom menace. They're going to say you're this. They're going to say you're that. They're going to say you coordinate with this person. They're going to make implications about us that aren't true. And then they're going to say, like, look at this vast conspiracy. Like, do we really think the She-Hulk writers thought they weren't writing about things that were true with that strange, ridiculous conclusion to their first storyline before they went to see the Kevin computer, where they had the intelligentsia and it was all YouTubers who were the real problem? It was YouTube critics and skeptics who were coordinating to keep She-Hulk down, and they were the ones who were messing with her.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
The villain of at the end, like, had a Doomcock like costume. They wrap up that story, and then they had the Kevin episode afterwards. I think what happens is they got fired, and they were at that final episode just to troll their own boss, and he self-owned enough to just let them do it. I don't know why let that go on, but can
Yeah,
you imagine
so-
every episode of that cost as much as Godzilla -1?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
A little more
can-
even.
I can believe that. Jeez, I mean, it's just
Have you
this is
seen it, by
like
the
this
way?
is this there. I have like, you know what's worse than hating something, being indifferent to
ambivalent?
it, and so that's why
Yeah.
I don't even mention. I don't talk about. I mean, I talked about Picard season 3 because I had to, because the Picard season 3 was a weird, unique exception.
It was also, here's the thing, people were building up the stakes, and my channel name is sort of in mockery of some of the stuff that they were doing around that, saving Star Trek. Like, if anyone's going to save Star Trek, it's going to be the fans it truly belongs to, and not like, some like guy that rode in on a chariot that like several YouTubers endorse and say is going to do something. And you know what? People may have bad takes, man. What's his name? One person withdrew like part of their endorsement retroactively. I'm trying to remember who. It was a really big guy. Who's the dude? He has the Avatar has the coffee mug, and it's like, how is this a thing? He does Star Trek. I'm trying to
Dave
remember.
Cullen. Dave Cullen.
Thank you.
And he's the reason why I got excited for Picard season 3. I mean, I was listening, so Robert Meyer Burnett talked about it months before. 6 months. He said I saw Picard season 3 6 months before the show dropped, and he's saying this is a totally different beast.
Of it.
Yeah, he says it's a totally different beast because, and the reason why I believed him at the time was because, I mean, he was so against Discovery.
Yeah.
Early Picard. He didn't like Strange New Worlds. I don't know if he said anything about the animated shows. I did try to watch a couple episodes of Lower Decks, and I wasn't impressed. I didn't like the characters. Wasn't impressed. It was kind of gross. I'm not a big fan of the gross, gross type of humor animation that Rick and Morty are known for. And then he had Legacy, which to me was them just saying, "Oh, I wish that it was like, oh, we wish we were Star Wars instead of Star Trek."
Prodigy.
I mean, yeah, Prodigy felt like I was watching the Clone Wars. Like I'm like
that
seeing
really scared me. You know what? I thought that was the most dangerous piece. The music's perfect. That was the most dangerous piece of Star Trek, New Trek. New Trek. What is New Trek? It is the destruction. It is death from lifefulness. Aside from the biblical reference, honestly, it was so bad. That show was aimed at children, had children's content. I would only say you look as far as Star Trek, Lower Decks, which was their most successful show, because they say my opinion is that once they did a few crazy things, they just neglected this show and left it alone because they're kind of lazy. And then the show kind of took off because they weren't making them do the other Star Trek type things. Yeah. So once that show succeeded, Alex Kurtzman does helicopter back on the scene, gets them back doing the Star Trek, the New Trek things that we hate, stops them from doing anything fun. And he makes the worst episode of Strange New Worlds of the second worst episode of Strange New Worlds that season. And there was some bad that was a bad season of Star Trek.
Yeah, I didn't like Strange New Worlds. I didn't like how it just failed to. Well, it was a follow up of Discovery season 2, which is that's an automatic strike right there. The end of Discovery season 2 is what got me out of. Like, I know a lot of people were like, after watching the first episode or two, were already out. I tried to give the show a chance, and I gave it a chance up to the end of season 2. And once I saw
season 1 so much, I had a hard time finishing it that I didn't watch season 2.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I was 2017. I was a sweet summer child, but season 2
back then. The dark times.
Yeah, season 2. However, what broke me was, and this is supposed to be before the original series, and they showed stuff that didn't seem like it was taking place before the original series. Like, you have all these drones and all these shuttlecraft fighting each other. I'm like, what the hell is all this? Like, what is all this?
You know what? That's the second ending of you talking about? Yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah, he had Control taking over a bunch of ships and all that, and Section 31, and I'm just like, this is stupid.
What I like to point out is they've been talking about how this Section 31 show is coming out from the time that the star has been in her 40s till the point she's in her 60s. But Tom Connors was most inclined to think that was probably going to happen. He thinks that there was a chance they're finally going to get that. They've agitated for so long that they're going to get it. And it'll be more woke garbage that probably won't work, but they're going to finally get their Star Trek detective show. And I guess I'll say it now, there's been a bleed over effect of all these successful detective shows, and it's bled into Star Trek. We have a mystery and everything, and we only ever can write cliffhangers. There's no finality to that season 3 of Picard either. Like, where are we? We still have
they just ended. Yeah, they just ended it. They like there were shapeshifters were still out there. Oh well, we found all the shapeshifters.
We threw
what are the implications for that?
The sun or something.
Who cares about the shapeshifters? It was the Borg who were the bad guys all along. Everything.
It was the same death as season 2 of Star Trek Disgracefully, where they throw Lorca out of the bottom of the Imperial ship and he falls into the plasma stream. When they threw the Fowler out of the whatever, Amanda Plummer. Right? Yeah. And here's the thing: like they didn't even explore this, but if that thing in her hand had been a PAL Wraith, you've almost started to cobble together a story. But all we know is that she took orders from a floating piece of flesh.
Yeah, and they never even really confirmed it was. They never even confirmed it was the Borg Queen. They just said oh, you were working with the Vatic and all that. I'm just like they didn't explain how that worked. How did that work? Like how does the Borg control a shapeshifter?
I think it was overlapping conspiracies. Isn't it? It was overlapping conspiracies. The Borg had already gone there and decided to turn themselves. They self-deleted by the best plan they could come up with in their powerful ship was to all go into a Matrix type situation where they went into a hibernative state and their bodies fed the ship power. Even though that ship is powerful, we've seen what the ship can do. They needed to self-delete to power it while it hung out in the storm, facing Sol, facing Earth. The storm is known to us. I mean, we don't know if there's not another storm on the other side. But the storm is like 200 years old, first spotted in 1800 or older, right? Maybe Da Vinci didn't see the storm. I don't think. But the storm's only 300 or 400 years old, maybe 5 most. But bottom line, we can see it now. So the fact that they would do that, it was made it the 6th or 7th ship in a row they went on to that had no crew. That crew just all self-deleted to become a Matrix, and then one wakes up to jump scare us.
Yeah,
it was the dumbest.
There's so many bad things about it, and the big one that I want to say before we wrap up:
dishonorable kill.
The Jack being, they let Jack. So had Jack not left the ship,
right?
If Jack had not left the ship, none of this stuff in the finale would have happened. They would have missed. They would have missed Frontier Day or whatever it was called, and and everything would have been peachy.
I wonder what they were alluding to with Frontier Day, and they kept scoffing at the military parade, over and over and over, just beating that drum. You know what the problem is with this is when you have lazy writers who want to be writing a crime show ripped from the headlines instead of a sci-fi fantasy show. By the time the sci-fi fantasy show that you're too lazy to write gets to the screen, your very current political topic is timed out. Picard season 1 was about Brexit. It was a year and a half after it happened. No one cared anymore. It wasn't relevant anymore. You know what I mean? They're always going to be behind the curve with this cutting edge, torn from the headlines Star Trek. Their production time's too long, so they have no real skills to do anything. So they just kind of try to pull these strange things. And I don't know how 77 member berries that save the show happen every week. It's we see these tweets every week, bro. 77 member berries. That means Star Trek Picard season 3 episode 2 was actually brilliant. Every time. How can it always be that way? Come on, the prop department's working that hard when everyone else can't even be bothered to write a coherent story. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how they can it's no kind of Star Trek that I recognize. I love that William Shatner's been fighting back against them. That's been maybe the best development of the last week. Radioactive's got a in here.
Yeah, so. All All right, I'm getting tired. So thanks for having this conversation with me, Admiral.
No
Sir.
problem. Thank you for having me. I've been friends for a while. You've always been a great colleague. In the crazy world of Star Trek pundits, you've always been a gentleman, and I'm glad to now be a member of the community.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
You're
So,
the
is there
best.
anything you'd like to plug? Any videos? Any streams? Anything you're doing coming up?
I have no current uploads that I'm working on, but I think I probably will be on tomorrow morning to at least watch some Star Trek. Probably around 12:30 Eastern time, give or take. I need to get lunch, and then I'll probably be over by the Comic Relief Crusader in the afternoon. So maybe then after that show, I'll probably do about 6:30 a show before Doomcock, and I'll see what I can come up with for that one, because there's been a few pop culture things since the last time I did anything, and I could get caught up, but I just needed to take a little break there for a while, because wow, it's been a really crazy couple of weeks. At the end of the year, it's just one bad crazy topic after another. So come look me up on my channel, Admiral Teag, and I will be with you guys tomorrow a couple times.
All right, and his link is in the description. Saving Star Trek. Click on that. Subscribe to him now.
Thank you, and thank you very much for having me, man. And everyone who's watching from my community who sees this when I put it for the community tab, please like and follow my good friend here, the Nerdporeal Life Forum. He's a great entertainer, not just Star Trek. He goes beyond that, as do we. I also will be covering Westerns and military movies. I should say that too. And sometimes you can catch me on Pop Culture Minefield.
All right. Thank you, Admiral. For me, I mean, I'm still... obviously next week I'm having Chillporeal. I think I might be doing a movie night on Sunday, trying to get some information about that. And my next video project I'm currently working on is the remake of Super Mario RPG. I'm writing my first video game review, so expect that, and hopefully I'll get back to making long form retrospectives and everything. So, but yeah, so John Soul, Jacob Ironside, Radioactive, CLS, Dempsey, Prophet, my streaming bro, Prophet of the Dragon, and who else was here? Oh, Pops was here.
Padawannabe, I think we saw.
Padawannabe was here. Ray Lucard was here. So a whole bunch of people.
Did we see Wes Cagle as well? Oh, was he here?
No, I didn't see him, but JT Kirk was here. And
hey, new member Admiral Teague. That guy's probably a tool. I'd watch him. He's going to be a problem. Sub Commander Tal was actually here.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The Twitter great. Only Count Dankula maybe has funnier stuff. I love that account. Follow that one. JT Kirk was here.
Stark of Iron.
Moore, Stark of Iron. Salty Traveling Sea. Thank you for coming by. I don't know Salty Traveling Sea, but thank you. Christ
good guy.
Thank you. Good to meet you. Good to meet all of you, and hello to all of you who may be lurking or coming through in the future. And it was great to finally do this. It was as much fun as I thought it would be. Oh, hey, Trip, right back. LPK, thank you very much for coming. William Richards, sir, thank you. DJ Ronnie G, thank you all.
Yep, everybody, thank you. And let's everybody stay safe. I know my area where it's going to be snowing. So once again, everybody take care. Have a great night. And we're going to see who's going to be on the next Chillporeal.